Well, they've since altered the regulations, so it's a lot more permissible to sell beer in a lot more locations. Even grocery stores now. Amazing. They can also have wine. That used to be a thing. You could not buy wine except at the state store.
I'm from the West, so like we just don't have this. You just go to Walmart and you can get everything. You get beer, wine, liquor,
bullets,
rubber buns.
Oh, come on.
No. The first time I was in Indiana, I walked into a gas station and was just astonished that, you can just buy liquor here at the Sunoco gas station.
Yeah, we did get rid of our drive-through liquor store, which was probably a good idea.
That was a great experience when Liam and I went down to go visit the Trillbillies in Whitesburg. Yeah, we got to go down to the Big Daddy's liquor barn down there.
So many possible worlds, but we got this one. So many possible worlds, but we got this one.
Welcome to the Worst of All Possible Worlds, the first and only podcast coming to you live from Big Daddy's Liquor Barn. I'm the worst of all possible AJs.
I'm the worst of all possible Brian's.
And I'm the worst of all possible Josh's. Rubber barns and liquor? Is this anything?
Shit!
Oh, wow.
Fuck.
I'm turned on and laughing. So we're pretty excited today because we're doing an episode about a city builder, which we haven't done any episodes about like true Sims before, I don't think, have we? You know, we really wanted to bring on a subject matter expert who could really help us understand both the concept of the city builder as well as city skylines in particular. And so we're extremely excited to welcome today's guest. He is one of the co-hosts of Well, There's Your Problem, a podcast about engineering disasters with slides. He also has a YouTube channel, Do Not Eat 01, and that's where he discusses urban planning and politics using city skylines. Please welcome to the show, Justin Roczniak.
Hello, good to be here. I'm not yet the worst of all possible Justin Roczniaks, but I went to the beer store so I could become that by the end of this podcast.
Absolutely. Yes. We hope to get you there together. You have been playing around with city skylines for a really long time. So I was curious just to get started, like, what is your background with city builders? What is it about city skylines in particular that drew you in?
Oh, I think I started with city builders probably way back with SimCity 2000, or more specifically, the SimCity 2000 Urban Renewal Kit. That one that let you, build the maps for Streets of SimCity and SimCopter, of course. I grew up in, horrible suburban Northern Virginia. So, obviously I couldn't go out and just experience a city. So, you have to stay inside and pretend.
Is this finally your first on-air admission that you are CIA?
No.
Oh, okay.
People who work for the CIA moved to Washington, D.C. I did the reverse. I got the hell out of there as soon as I could.
You're from Langley, but not like that.
Yeah. A little bit farther away from Langley, but my dad's company picnic was always across the street from the CIA building. So,
Is he, Langley?
No, American Chemistry Council. Much more out in the open about all the horrible stuff.
Sure. But hey, what's not horrible is SimCity 2000, right? Like, I feel like that is a formative game for a lot of people. And I guess that sort of drew you toward a broader interest in urban planning. Is that fair to say?
That sounds about right to me. I wouldn't say it was strictly from SimCity 2000. I would say it was more from like SimCity 4. You grow a little older. It's 2004. You're at the wizened old age of 11.
Yeah.
And, this is just a much more in-depth simulation. The graphics look fantastic. The music is incredible. But a lot of people around this time, since this game was in-depth enough, this is around back when there's a bunch of like city building, like forums and stuff like that. You go in and you talk to the community and stuff like that. People did these things called city journals back then. One that got me really interested was one called Adventures in New Urbanism, which is someone else took the game and used it to explain a lot of the huge deficiencies in the urban planning profession at that time. And it was nice and clear and easy to understand, and there was lots of pretty pictures, which I like. Because that means I don't have to read, especially important if you're 11.
There's something about this kind of game about simulators of different sorts that attracts people who do this kind of thing in the real world. Like how German truck drivers like to come home and then play their little German truck driving simulators for fun.
Turns out
after
the
work.
job's a lot more fun if it's lower stakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mentioned the Franklin series and the Power, Politics, and Planning series. I'd be curious, just for people who are not familiar with this, for you to talk a little bit more about those series and sort of then how you took what you learned and applied it to those videos.
So I was encouraged to do them by my friend Jay, who everyone knows as Besquicklehausen on in the City Skylines world. I suddenly had a lot of free time to do them because I got fired from a job. Also I had to move apartments really quickly, which meant I needed some money.
Oh, yeah.
And unlike everyone else who's gone into Patreon with that idea that I can make some money, it somehow worked for me. I got lucky.
Yeah, your channel exploded fast.
I don't know what did it.
Well, I will say, like, even from the word go, Roz, like that first episode of Franklin, like it's already fully its own thing. And it's so hard to like start doing a video series and already have it be like an ideal version of itself and then only improve on it from there. Like you really captured something.
It made me a Yimby, so thanks for that.
Oh no! You're not supposed to go that far. You're not supposed to go that far.
But yeah, I think that aspect of like people coming across leftist theory and things like that, and like coming across very complicated ideas, and sometimes things are sort of hidden away by like, oh, it's nuanced, oh, it's complicated, therefore don't worry about it and just vote Democrat or something.
Right.
But when it comes to city planning, it is incredibly complicated. And it is really weird that there's a bunch of people on Twitter who just call each other Hitler all day long for not understanding very, very difficult things to understand. And I think that you're able to use this game and your own expertise and your own narration to explain things that are just so far away from what people interact with in their daily life, because so much of the machinery of what goes into making a city, making it work is distant, right? It affects you every day, but it's abstract. You know, like, how does my plumbing work? I turn the water on and it works, but like, how does the water get to the tank? How does the tank get to my house and everything is so important to understand.
Right. Oh yeah, I mean, and then you one day you learn about parking, and then your brain explodes, and then you realize,
it's all over.
It's all over. Yeah.
We are specifically going to be focusing on City Skylines for the majority of this, but I figured that the best place to start would be to talk about really the OG city builder.
Yeah.
Which is to say Will Wright's game SimCity, released by Maxis in 1989 for Macintosh and PC computers.
So Will Wright was originally working for Broderbund, which I actually never realized is an American company that just gave itself a really pretentious name.
They just wanted to sound Danish for some reason. I don't know why.
He made a game called Raid on Bungling Bay, which is, Broderbund had a bunch of games with the bunglings in them. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, but also fuck you, you're American. He was building the map and he was like, okay, maybe making maps is more fun than the game that I'm making. And he thought, like, what if we made a game at this point in time, right, in the 80s, where players can just make maps? What can that do for us? What can that do for them? And he went to Montessori school growing up. Like, all of his elementary education was Montessori school, right? An alternative form of schooling that's like 150 years old or whatever.
It guaranteed to make you a stranger person.
Oh yeah.
Well, not better, not worse, but stranger.
I will say I spent my preschooling at a Montessori school and was expelled for biting a kid.
I would say, regular school, the kid who bit me in preschool did not get expelled. I guess that's the difference.
I see.
Yeah.
The state allows children to bite each other. This is why we need things to be in the hands of private concerns to get the biters out. So Will Wright presumably didn't bite anyone because he stayed in Montessori school. But yeah, I guess the Montessori education worked for him and he really liked it. So he was thinking about games as a form of Montessori education. And so he decided, like, oh, well, I'm making maps, and Raid on Bungling Bay is also like, you are bombing infrastructure for that whole game. It's like the bunglings are all building munitions factories and like things grow and change, and there's points of connection between the warehouses and the bases and everything that you can bomb. So he was already kind of on this wavelength, but he was like, what if we use this to like build a city, build an actually functioning city with things moving left and right that you don't have total control over every moving part.
This is how the mechanical engineers used to mock us in college. Mechanical engineers build weapons, civil engineers build targets.
Oh my God.
So Will Wright went and read theory. He did it. He went to the library. He read some fucking books.
Theory.
Yeah,
Yes.
he got problematic with it. He read urban dynamics and a pattern language, basing the game off of the principles that are explained in those books. But yeah, what is urban dynamics, Roz?
Urban Dynamics is a book by J.W. Forrester, who was sort of I want to say he wasn't quite like a software engineer or anything like that. He studied a lot of stuff. He's sort of a polymath in computers back in that sort of time period, right?
A master of the punch card.
Exactly. Yeah. He could punch the card. He could read the ticker tape. You could put that 8.5-inch floppy or whatever it is, in there.
He was doing this in the 60s, so he was basically a warlock.
This is true, yeah. The idea of like urban dynamics is we're going to create a series of models and algorithms describing complex societal problems and the urban environment and how like the various things happening in a city affect each other, so on and so forth.
Okay.
And this was actually designed for the purpose of city governance. Like you were supposed to be able to use these models to make decisions in a wise and learned manner if you were, say, the mayor of Boston, who I believe a meeting with them inspired this whole thing.
Okay.
And it's pretty ideologically conservative.
Sure.
It comes to weird conclusions like public housing is bad and useless. Taxes don't do anything. The only solution to big societal problems like urban decay is just jobs. You need more jobs. Just jobs. Just throw jobs at the problem. Now, Will Wright didn't lift those algorithms and models whole cloth. They were altered for gameplay's sake. But this is like the foundation of all city builder games, at least in this sort of genre. And Jay Forrester goes on to work with like the guys at the Club of Rome. Those are the guys who put out that book, Limits to Growth.
Okay.
That every economist tells you is fake and is probably real.
Oh dear.
This was published all the way back in 1969. So SimCity wouldn't come along for another 20 years, but all of the assumptions that you're mentioning there are they're assumptions that are made in the game. The focus of SimCity is pretty much you've got a city, you start from scratch, just a blank terrain, a blank canvas, Terra Nova, right? And you build it up from the very beginning by laying down roads, laying down rail, and zoning for different types of development, specifically 3 categories: residential, commercial, and industrial.
And you never mix. You don't mix it.
They must never mix.
That's right.
Don't cross the streams.
And we'll talk a little bit more later about the way that zoning works and sort of how this carries through to city skylines. But for now, what you need to know is that the core focus of SimCity was, as you continue to grow this city using these 3 different types of zoning, the city will get bigger. You have to lay down more infrastructure. You have to lay down more services so that the city can continue to grow and so that people can be supplied with sufficient jobs, which are ultimately the bread and butter of your city's growth.
You have to build an individual power line from every building to every other building.
Yep. Really fun.
Yeah. It'd be a shame if someone tried to do that in city skylines.
It's worth noting SimCity, totally top-down view. You're just plopping down squares, basically.
Yeah.
Yes.
SimCity 2000, which was its follow-up in 1993, would shift to an isometric view where you were sort of like looking diagonally down at the city rather than overhead. And that isometric view would carry through all of the subsequent SimCity games, the classic SimCity games.
2D sprites. It's always 2-dimensional.
SimCity 2000 was also the first one where you could make your own sprites.
Right.
Which was very nice.
I remember it had a really cool computer box too. When I would walk through CompUSA, it had like a very fun design for like the computer game box itself that had a little Velcro thing that you could open. It would like reveal the whole city. It was very eye-catching.
Oh yeah, it's got the UFO from on the front. Oh no, it's just the UFO on the front. I was thinking the actual UFO disaster in there. The actual sprite for the UFO is just lifted whole cloth from I believe, the Doctor Who serial, The Prison Planet.
I didn't know that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, is that where Paul Joseph Watson got his name?
Ooh, that's a good question. I got to double check that now.
It is a strange thing about SimCity 2000, though, the fact that there is that UFO on the cover that does not appear anywhere in the game. But it is a cool game.
It's not one of the disasters in the game?
No. No, that
what?
UFO was strictly for the sake of box art, does not appear in the game.
Advertising.
But
That's amazing.
I just wanted to take a sec just to talk about SimCity 2000 specifically, because this was my first real city builder.
Hell yeah.
And I still have a real soft spot in my heart for it. And I think this is the case for most people who love city builders.
Yeah. In terms of looking on the forums of like the games that people like point to as like the classics of the series, it's SimCity 2000. And I think it is SimCity 4. I think those are sort of like the big pillars that people point to. City Skylines was my first city builder ever.
Mine too.
Oh.
Yeah, and by that I mean I played it for the first time on Wednesday. So I'm very excited to like sort of delve into the mechanics of these original games and how they made their way into this game, because it seems like City Skylines pretty much just took a lot of stuff from SimCity.
Most of the mechanics are lifted specifically from SimCity 2013.
Okay.
And a lot of the other stuff is the whole thing changed.
Yeah.
Everything changed at one point.
And I want to get to SimCity 2013 in a second. Before I do that, though, just want to note a couple other influential city builders. Caesar, which was published by Sierra, that was sort of had more of a focus on citizen amenities and military readiness. But the way that amenities work in that game was also a big influence on City Skylines. I found specifically, there was a talk by the lead developer, Carolina something or other. It's a very long Finnish name that I can't pronounce.
There'll be a lot of Finns in this episode.
But she does specifically name check Caesar as another influence. And then I should also just note Anno, the Anno series, Max Design, and later Ubisoft, has a heavier focus on like trade and production chains. And there's a little bit of this influence in cities as well, especially if you get the industry DLC. Where a big piece of the focus is like, how do you get from raw materials through to a finished product?
That's the state capitalism DLC, where for all of a sudden you're in charge of certain industries for some reason.
Right.
And the other thing to note about Anno and Caesar and also Pharaoh, another one in like the Caesar thread of games, is these are all historical games, whereas SimCity is a modern city builder, and a lot of you just don't have a whole lot of modern city builders. I think a lot of developers are scared to do it.
I would go so far as to say this is the general purpose city builder, and there's only room for one in the market. It's a huge market, but there's only one.
Yeah.
It's an XXL market, and they don't want to play XXL.
No, they don't.
Cities XXL was not good.
Yeah, I was going to say SimCity, was that game for a very long time. From SimCity original all the way up to SimCity 4. Banger, 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 right? 3000, not as good as 2004, but still a pretty great game. And then Maxis took that and made an entire empire of other sim games. Like, it wasn't just SimCity. Yep. I remember they had SimTown, which is like an ecological edutainment simulator for children.
More for children. Sim Safari was more of an edutainment for children game. You had Sim Isle, Sim Tower, which was just a clever acquisition because it was actually just a Japanese game that they bought from Yutaka Saito.
Sim Tower is an elevator simulator.
Yes.
Which is why none of the games that have tried to mimic it since have succeeded, because they don't have the deep, complex elevator simulation.
The thing about what made SimCity work so well, I think, was the fact that you can build this thing, you can keep building it, and at every step of the way, you feel in control of this city. You feel like it's truly yours. Then Maxis in 2013 was like, well, we haven't released a SimCity in a decade. Let's do a new one. And it was a fucking disaster.
They did have a weird one in between called SimCity Societies, where they farmed out the development to some weirdos.
It was 3D.
Yeah, and it was terrible. No one liked it.
Tell us a little bit about why SimCity 2013 was such a colossal failure.
SimCity 2013 tried to break with a lot of the traditions of early city simulators, right? Until SimCity 2013, these city simulators are all statistical. They manipulate a bunch of big numbers behind the scenes. Those numbers manifest as, traffic, as zoning demand, as, average educational attainment, crime, so on and so forth. You know, in SimCity 4, it was like social class, even, you know, stuff like that. Individual citizens were not simulated explicitly, right? So with SimCity 2013, they invented this this new game engine, the Glassbox engine, right? It was going to turn it on its head. This is going to be the agent-based simulation. Every citizen is simulated, right? They go to work, they go to school, they go shopping. It's all simulated. It's all simulated on an individual basis. This simple simulation, repeated thousands of times, would be where all these larger trends would manifest from, right? This is an entirely different type of city simulator altogether.
It's an entirely different kind of city simulator.
It's really hard with the online delay, but
It's a little hard.
They were trying to do this back in 2013 and on a huge scale,
which led to some really great results because you can't actually do that.
Yeah, the hardware at the time just couldn't do it.
So like if someone was walking to work from their house, they would just walk to the nearest workplace.
They walk to the next workplace, and when they're finished with work, they walk to the nearest house.
Okay. So not even the same house as the night before?
No, not
That's
even
really
the same
funny.
house as the night before.
Hey, I guess I live here now. You're my wife, I guess.
Yeah.
So I can see how this could cause real problems with the simulation at scale.
Which is why they kept the scale really, really small.
Right.
Yes. I mean, well, this is also, I mean, okay, well, look at a different game, Workers and Resources, Soviet Republic. It basically works the same way, but it's fine.
Yeah, like the agents not being super smart doesn't really matter as long as the game is still fun.
Yeah.
Right. And as long as like the statistical stuff is still working in the background.
Yeah. But they kept, you know, they had to scale everything way back just for hardware limitations.
Yeah.
The area you could build the city was really small. It was like a kilometer by a kilometer because it was an EA game, because EA acquired Maxis. They were like, this game has to be always online.
Yeah.
Even though there's no reason for that.
And they straight up said, well, because the Glassbox engine is doing so much with all these simulated agents and everything, some of that calculation is happening online. A year later, they released the offline version, and it doesn't change anything.
I was going to say, that's
Wasn't even
horseshit.
that. It was it was a modder went in and found there was one line of code that said if there was no internet connection, don't run the game.
That's awesome.
And just they removed it, and no, it worked fine.
And there was an idea for some fun online functionality that wasn't just DRM, because SimCity, at least I've played 4. That's the only SimCity I've played. You know, you have those outside connections. So like one city you've built might not have certain resources, but the next one you build over, you connect it with a road, you can get things to transport from one to the next.
Yes.
So with SimCity Online, SimCity 2013, you could potentially have another city run by another person, and then you can develop some kind of relationship with them, but it really just doesn't do much of anything at all.
Yeah.
What this led to was really neglected servers, a total lack of preparedness for the high demand of this game, really a misunderstanding of very simple supply-demand issues, which led to a lot of traffic that got blocked up, much like if you run a bad city in City Skylines or
Yes.
SimCity.
Oh, shit.
People want their city simulators. But they also have to be good.
Yeah.
Right.
So when the game started, people were buying a game at full price, $60, and not playing it for days on end because they couldn't.
And that was $2013. That was a lot more money back then.
Yeah.
That was like a month of rent.
Yeah.
Now that's a single scone.
And I remember this too. I remember this because this game was so hyped.
Yeah.
Because it was like, you know, Max is at this point, it's worth noting, you know, Spore was 5 years earlier. And other than this, Max is making basically all of their money on The Sims. And it was like, they are going back to their roots. They're going back to fucking SimCity.
It looks beautiful.
Yeah.
Like the cartoonishness really works for it. Everything about it on paper, in the ads, looks like it's going to be fucking great. And then you have 1 kilometer to build your city, and every city looks exactly the same. And then you get kicked off because the internet broke.
Yes.
The hardware requirements that did exist were also pretty insane, as I recall.
It was a little bit premature for the 3D city simulator to show up at that time, especially you know, unless you had like the super hardcore desktop which I did not have at the time. It was not practical.
But what I will say is that the lack of success for SimCity 2013, aka the failure, I don't know why I said it that way.
Jesus.
It left a lane open, right? And enter now Colossal Order, which is a Finnish game studio based out of Tampere. I hope I pronounced that well. Finns, let me know in the comments how I did.
Sam Lake, please let us know how we did.
So their first game is called Cities in Motion. This is released in 2011 by Paradox. Nice. And this is really, I think, sort of a spiritual successor to Transport Tycoon, if you've ever played that. Rather than being focused on building cities, what you are doing is you are building and optimizing infrastructure networks inside of existing cities.
Cities in Motion is a business simulator. You are running a private transit business.
We're starting from the fantasy that public transportation makes money.
Yes.
Right.
Governor Hochul, are you listening to this podcast? We cry out for congestion pricing.
The big thing with Cities in Motion is that you're working in real world cities at real points in history. So like the first set of scenarios, the tutorials are Berlin before, during, and after the Cold War. So you're managing transit, then you're managing transit from both sides of the wall and the complicated relationship that did actually emerge historically there. And then you're managing the reunification of all of that in the 90s. Then they have DLC packs. They make about 13 or 16 DLCs, I don't remember, that have like other cities. You can go to Paris, you can go to New York, San Francisco, Ulm.
Yeah.
Everyone loves Ulm.
Everybody,
they got a big minster there. Everyone loves a minster.
They got the big, the tallest church in the world.
Yeah,
Einstein was born there.
Oh,
It's not that big of a place. I don't know why Ulm is in there, but you can buy Ulm DLC.
okay.
Cities in Motion is followed up by Cities in Motion 2, which also gets like 12 or 13 DLCs. It's less well liked than Cities in Motion 1. I have not played it.
I've played a lot of it. I never played the first one. I played the second one.
Do you like it?
I liked it a lot because, once I figured out how to make express subways, I was like, oh, this is a lot of fun. I like this.
Yeah, I think Cities in Motion is really fun. It's just that the buses are really weird, and then all of their stops get swamped, and no one ever leaves the bus. But other than that, like the trolleys and the trains
continues.
Yeah.
Well, they leave work and go to the bus, and I guess I live here now. I guess that's my
I live on the bus now.
Well, and that's the thing is the agents in Cities in Motion, or Sims, as we call them, CIM for Cities in Motion, not actionable, not trademarked by another company.
True.
The Sims actually have dedicated homes and workplaces and points of interest, like theme parks that they want to visit. So that's important. They already know how to do this sort of agent-based system, but it's not a city builder, it's a city connector.
But with that said, a game like Cities in Motion, what you do have is a very complex and effective simulation of transportation networks. And the thing about city builders is that they are as much transportation simulators as they are, construction simulators or whatever.
Right.
The way that you lay your shit out and the way that you connect things together impacts the growth of your city. You have to build an efficient network in order for the city to grow effectively. And so SimCity 2013 flops and Colossal Order sees a window because, like you said, Roz, there can be only one. And Colossal Order, even though they only have 14 people on staff, are like, you know what? It could be us. Paradox, will you let us do an actual city builder? And Paradox says yes. And in 2015, this new fully 3D city builder with deep transportation mechanics is released as Cities Skylines to pretty much universal critical acclaim.
Everyone loves it immediately. It's great. It's fantastic. There's like literally nothing wrong with it. The only thing you could maybe have said was like, I don't know, it's a little limited. There's some stuff you would have liked to have seen in the original version.
disasters.
But it shows up with like modding tools immediately. Yeah. So it's like, it doesn't matter. Put it in yourself. Get off the couch.
Get off the couch and get into your gamer chair.
Yeah, exactly.
And the game just looks really nice. They have a very specific look that has very little resemblance to Cities in Motion. and it looks more like what people were kind of hoping the SimCity would look like, right?
Mm-hmm.
It uses a lot of
goofy. It's got a lot of colors.
It's a bit more miniaturized.
There's a lot of vans with hot dogs and donuts on the roof.
It can be European or American style buildings or a hybrid of both. I have to turn all these features off when I play it on my computer because it's not good, but you can do like tilt shift photography. You can look at like really low angles. You can have this sort of free roaming camera that just looks nice and sounds peaceful, and you're just having fun clicking the little buttons.
Well, and it should be noted here too, Brian, that your laptop is a fucking potato. Like the fact that the game can run on that computer at all is actually pretty impressive.
It was extremely optimized. It ran really great on pretty much everything.
My current laptop is a little bit of a potato. I did not buy this game recently. I bought this 10 years ago on a MacBook.
Yeah.
Which can, in fact, from 2012, which can, in fact, couldn't play Civ 6, but can play City Skylines just fine until you hit about 40,000 people, and then it can't speed up anymore. And then by, I don't know, 60,000, you should probably just quit the game.
You're only 5,000 people away from the agent limit at that point, though. So,
despite all of the disasters that are probably happening in your city, if you're bad at these games like I am, it is nice to have this soundtrack in the background being like, "It's okay, don't look at the tweets at the top of the page because everybody hates you." And so I want to take a moment here just to acknowledge something. These games aren't particularly for me, but I did find myself over the course of playing this game developing a backstory for my city in a way that I think that these games are sort of designed to do. They're designed to make you care about your town and thus care about the people who live in it, despite the majority of them being named Phillips in some capacity. Every single person in my town had the surname of Phillips, which is weird because that's also my spouse's last name.
Yeah.
So at a certain point, I would look at them and be like, if I clicked on this house and deleted it, would you also disappear? I played too much of this game too quickly, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's not something you want to play on a deadline. I think it's something that's really fun to like enjoy as you're watching TV or listening to podcasts or whatever else. There are a lot of Phillips in this game. And AJ, I don't know if you know what the name Philip means. And I think it might be worth mentioning at this point in time, because I think the people in that city are not just a lot like your spouse, but a lot like you. Because Philip means horse lover.
Hell
yeah.
Wow, an impromptu horse corner. Do we dare? Do we dare? I did notice actually. No, we don't.
I think AJ, to your point about how like in many ways this game becomes an emergent story simulator.
Yeah.
Well, the assignment that I had for all of us in playing this game was like, take down notes about what happens with your town at various points of growth, and we're just going to kind of tell the stories of our town. And we'll sort of use that then to illuminate the mechanics that we find at each point in the game. So I'm just going to start out here by telling you a little bit of a story about a town called Reddington. That's what I decided to call my town, Reddington. I don't know why.
It's like Reading, Pennsylvania, but with an extra thing to let you know it's a city. And,
it has 2 pagodas.
Oh, wow. Wow.
For me, the game started out the way that I think most of these games start out for people, which is, you plat out a grid. The game really encourages you to get started by just playing around with the road tools and building a pretty basic little grid. And this is where it starts.
Walls off most things. So like you have a bunch of buttons at the bottom, but they're black. You can't click on them. You can click on the roads and you can click on the zoning, and that's it.
And so I did exactly that. I platted out a pretty basic grid. I think it was like a 2x4 or something like that, maybe 8 blocks, and built an arterial main road right down the middle connecting to the highway. I also connected the arterial down to a roundabout, which then led to our industrial area. And thus Reddington was born.
What the fuck does arterial mean?
Arterial be referring to like an artery, like in your body. So an arterial road is going to be like a larger road, which is like the main place for cars to go. So it's going to be like, I don't know, 4 lanes wide, but an arterial road is not necessarily a highway or a limited access highway. This is going to be something which is more like, okay, you're going to have some amount of like homes and businesses off of it. Below that is something like a collector which is, something which is designed to move cars into the arterial road to get from point A to point B. And then there are going to be various local streets, which would connect to the collector road to shove everyone onto the arterial. And this is a whole bunch of bullshit that was made up by traffic engineers in like the 40s that doesn't work.
So here's the thing. This game does not have a tutorial of any kind. It is sort of a game that's like, it's very hard to read in the corner and it doesn't actually help you when you need it. But
it's not that hard to read.
There is a YouTube video that I watched that is a beginner's guide to this game because I was wholly lost at the beginning of this. I had never played a city builder before. I bounced off the game 2 or 3 times because I was bankrupt in the first like 10 minutes and I didn't know what to do. So I went to YouTube. The beginner's guide to this game is part 1 is an hour long. And
was it the City Planner Plays one? Because that's a really good video. Okay.
But
it was way too detailed.
It begins with, so we're going to start with an arterial road that will go down to a collector here. And immediately I'm like, this is the beginner's guide? I was already...
Guys, it's probably not great to use, traffic engineer speak to start out with. You could say the big road and the medium road and the small road.
Yes, pretty much. And my big plan, I don't know if other people who are just starting out with these things would make the same mistakes, but I made it way too big, way too fast, which completely drains your money.
Yeah,
right?
That's the thing is like you want to do it right. So you're like, oh, I don't want to just build a neighborhood right off the freeway. I don't want my sewage to be too close by. I want my water to be like far back. I need my electricity to get to the windmill or whatever. And then you've built all your pipes and you built all your wires and it doesn't quite connect yet and you're already out of money. So I feel like most failures happen right at the very beginning of the game.
You're just replicating Lehigh Acres, Florida, where they did that exact thing.
I named my town Doodleburg, and I'm going to tell you about it.
That's not what you named it.
No. Okay. Well, okay. I'll get to that in a second.
Hold on.
I built 2 towns. The first town I built made it to about, I think, 40,000 people, and then collapsed so entirely that I didn't see a way out, so I just kind of abandoned it.
So that was not Doodleburg?
That was not Doodleburg. This town was called Water Everywhere, Please Kill Me.
Yes.
Because
I was there when that town was founded.
Yes. And it was because I was having such a horrible time playing this game because I found it so inscrutable. And then
because
I started
you weren't
Doodleburg.
reading the pop-ups, AJ.
I couldn't. You can't. First of all, you can't read them because they're way too small. And second of all, it just referred to menus that I couldn't find because none of the symbols made any goddamn sense.
You have to click on the buttons and then you learn what they mean.
You gotta listen to your residents' tweets, which is the worst part.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And so I started Doodleburg and I got a lot further because Brian took the time to actually walk me through every single step. I didn't realize that like you didn't have to individually set up plumbing for every single house. I didn't understand that it was just like a little radius. I didn't understand that you didn't need an electrical thing going like just around every single building.
Let me explain this for a second here. So the big thing with development is the first building block is always a road. You can't develop a house. You can't get a house built without a road. So you build the road first, and the road has little zones on each side of it. And those zones can be zoned. I should have used a different word than zone. Those roads have squares on either side.
Little squares there.
Little tiny squares.
Yeah. And you color in the squares. So you do green squares for homes, blue squares for like retail, and yellow squares for heavy industry.
Again, 3 zones. That's all you get.
They do not get offices too.
You can put them eventually. You can put them kind of next to each other if you get really crazy with it, and then everyone gets mad.
But also, offices are just industry, like for the sake of game balance.
Should be part of commercial. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how they were in SimCity 4. That's how they're supposed to be.
Yeah, they were taking a swing here. These Finns, they have a new idea here.
It's the knowledge economy.
They've done more zones when we should have less. I've looked at the Philadelphia zoning code, and CMX5 is for commercial and office and residential and, well, anything you really think you could put there.
So players are not building each individual piece, right? This isn't Age of Empires. You're not setting down your house so you can, birth more workers to build more houses.
Right.
You don't have to do that.
Or Caesar. Caesar works that way too.
You just have to zone. And so when you zone, the houses will be built, and then they won't have plumbing or electricity. So you have to start hooking that up. So every time you plan out a new development, you have to think about getting the roads built, getting the plumbing connected, and getting the electricity connected. And then there's other amenities, but those are the first three things that you have to think of. So your plumbing starts with a water source that either comes straight out of open water like a river, and you can hook a pump up to that, or you can have water that presumably comes from an aquifer. You just drop a water tower down, it goes and picks up water from the ground. Then you run pipes directly from that source into a general area. So there's a radius around the pipe that if you're hooking up directly to a water source, you have to have the pipe touch it. But for a home or something else, it just needs to be in the radius. And so you just sort of paint a radius, and then you have sewage. So that has to go to a waste pipe. And so you have to make sure that that wastewater pipe is not connecting back to the water that you're sourcing.
And that it has to be upstream of it.
Yeah.
Or downstream of it, I should say.
Downstream, ideally.
10 years ago when I first played this game, I had poisoned my town because I put industry next to my water tower. But I thought it was some much more complicated issue with elevation, where maybe my fresh water wasn't coming from a high enough source compared to the sewage. So then I redid all of my plumbing, and I learned some very bad habits for plumbing for the next 5 years before I learned that the issue was much simpler than that. Electricity works similarly, but different. So you have sources of electricity, coal-fired plants, oil, whatever, windmills, and you have to place windmills according to like how the wind is blowing in specific spots. And then you hook those up to your grid with power lines. But instead of doing the pipe thing where you have to draw it under every single area, get it in the radius, you have to directly connect the power line to just something. A house, a police station, a school, whatever. And then everything will develop next to it. And all of that will be presumably underground wires. It all just sort of connects one building to the next.
But the thing that's kind of irritating about the power wires is that unlike in SimCity 2000, those power wires don't go away once zoned land gets filled.
You have to manually delete them, and they get in the way of zoning.
I just want to say one more word about sewage for a second, because I also spent my entire first couple hours thinking that gravity had something to do with getting rid of waste.
Yeah, gravity has nothing to do with water.
It has nothing to do with it. And actually, it was, Roz, it took me watching your video and you saying that gravity doesn't matter for me to be like, oh no, gravity doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I went back into the game, and because what happened was I had this like an entire city on a hill that just had monstrous amounts of sewage. And so like, what can I do? I went to Reddit, which was my first mistake. And and
Never go on Reddit.
And all the people who bounce off the game who post about it on Reddit are like, my city just didn't look the way I wanted it to, and I'm a perfectionist. How can I get past that? And I was like, I can't get the game to work. So then what they told me to do, and this is true, was to terraform and make a giant hole in the ground and put a sewage pipe on top of it to then just dump the sewage into a giant hole, and then I wouldn't have to worry about it.
They were going to have you build the shit lagoon.
Yeah.
So I built the shit lagoon.
That is an option.
On top of a hill. And then the shit lagoon filled.
Yep.
It became a shit volcano.
And it became a shit tsunami and wiped out my interstate.
Oh,
so
no.
I dug a canal.
Not ideal.
I dug a canal leading under it so that it would kind of like pool at the bottom and then like filter along the highway. And eventually I got to the point where I figured out the sewage, but the canal remained for my entire playthrough. And I renamed it The Hole. And that's became sort of the focal point of Doodleburg, was this giant shit canal.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned The Hole, because there is a very small neighborhood in Brooklyn, which is also referred to as The Hole, which is the only part of Brooklyn that is below grade, and they don't have plumbing and sewage there.
Yeah,
and
they just
so
straight
it
up
actually
don't
ends
have
up
it,
in a pretty similar situation.
What?
Yeah.
What do they do?
Yeah.
Wait, where is this? Is this like by the Gowanus Canal or something like that?
No,
it's
this is further
towards
east. It's on
Rockaway.
Conduit. It's on Conduit Boulevard on your way toward the airport.
Yeah.
You can
Oh,
actually
shit.
see it on your way to Kennedy if you look out one window. Very strange place.
Long Island's
Oh,
Death
God.
Valley.
Oh my God.
Supposedly it's where, you know, the mob would dump bodies back in the day because it was so marshy down
I like
there.
to imagine
but,
that was the first place the Dutch settled. Like they're like, oh, it's underneath the ocean. It will get flooded. We'll just build a bunch of dikes here, and then we'll stick our fingers in it when it breaks.
Absolutely. But Ross, I'm curious now from your perspective. Did you build a new city for the purpose of this episode, or?
I have the issue that I have a lot of legacy mods So my big
sure.
issue is trying to start the game.
Yeah.
Sure.
In this new modern paradigm, there's a launcher now that you need.
Yeah.
Right.
Which was very confusing. There's a and then there's like a whole bunch of mods you have to swap out. But now you can get a huge spreadsheet that tells you which ones you can run with which ones. And then it's like, okay, I have the game launched. Not have anything approximating a vanilla experience. I have to go through and disable most of the mods, but not all of them, because there may be problems with any of the but I can't disable any. I got confused.
Just threw your computer out the window, basically.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not smart enough to play this game anymore.
Yeah.
I've gotten dumber.
Well, I'm curious to hear just sort of thoughts about the way that they've balanced the introduction system, because, it is one of those things where, for me personally, I never really had a problem with getting started, but that's because I played a lot of SimCity 2000 back in the day. And I feel like the systems of this game owe so much to Maxis.
I mean, I've spent too much time playing with like most of the mechanics turned off, but you did try and at least provide the services. I haven't done the actual game progression in a very long time. I've done it in the new game, but not the current one. Making money was actually usually a problem for me because I wanted the city to look nice and not, perform well.
As like just a building tool, I think the game is incredibly successful because it does, even in the most basic vanilla version, you can really customize to like a very satisfying extent. The gameplay itself and the game progression, I think, is kind of busted because I don't think it becomes a game until you've actually grown your city to a megalopolis. And then it unlocks all of these monuments that you can build that are all these that have actual like game requirements and conditions to meet. But they don't do a particularly good job of dangling the carrot up until that point. And
they never focused on scenarios. Like there are a handful of scenarios you get from some DLCs, but I don't think base game has it. And that is a way that you can tutorialize people. It's like, here's a place where the sewage is all fucked up. Fix the sewage. Great. We'll move on to the next one.
I also don't like just how most of the maps start, which is, okay, you have this one square and we've built a whole highway interchange for you that just dead ends. It's like, no, this should be like a horrible country crossing with like a gas station and a railroad stop.
So that's the thing with my game. I decided I was going to rebuild my hometown of Gallup, New Mexico.
Oh, there you go.
So I grabbed real world data. You can import these little maps. There are a couple utilities online to do it. I had a lot of difficulty getting that first step done. But then I got Gallup and I put it in the game. It's a desert town in New Mexico, so it's not going to be operating under a lot of the same principles. I won't go into all the terraforming, but you do need like a consistent source of above ground water, which Gallup doesn't have. So I just had to make the Rio Puerco into an ongoing river. And I started the source of the river at the old Superfund site where the uranium tailings spilled. So,
oh, wow.
Good idea.
That became my river. Gallup is set in a steep mountain pass, like between a set of hogbacks that kind of dip into the earth and then come back up. And you have the rail running through, you have Route 66 running through, you have the river running through, and then you have a part of the hogbacks that have been blasted out to make way for Interstate 40. So I set up my highways and everything to do that. And that's one of the things is like Gallup didn't start off of an interstate. Gallup started off of a railroad. You can't build a rail station at the beginning of the game.
You can't even build a railroad at the beginning of the game. You only have access
connections come pretty late.
Yep. You only have access to streets at the beginning.
So I started by building downtown Gallup kind of generally where it is off of Route 66 and went from there with no train connections for a very long time.
Yeah, they really try to keep you isolated for a while. Which I think is interesting because so much of the industry sort of relies on getting imports and exports in a way I wasn't necessarily anticipating when I first started.
And that will overwhelm your road network extremely quickly. All of the industry, because that's exactly what happened to me with my own. I ended up zoning a whole big chunk of industry. I called it Magnolia Industry Park.
Hell yeah.
I also zoned a residential neighborhood fairly close to the industrial neighborhood. and I called the neighborhood Rockland, and it was named after the big fucking rock that was right there.
Okay.
I also plotted out a little park, and I called it Big Fucking Rock Park. But part of the problem then that I ran into was that I didn't have enough educated workers, because you can do industry with uneducated workers, but your commercial, you'll still have demand for commercial that requires some amount of education to staff those commercial services. And here again, it was like, okay, I guess I have to plop down like a couple schools, but the schools are really expensive to build.
And they don't reach very far.
Right.
So this was something where I had to build way more elementary schools in Gallup than actually exist in Gallup, because the European mind cannot conceive of the sprawl of the American West.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Absolutely.
Right.
Well, I mean, look at the new game. I mean, the European mind apparently cannot conceive of a large school.
I shit you not. I had 7 high schools next to each other. Can you imagine the football rivalries of 7 schools that close together? So many goats getting stolen.
That would turn into gang warfare.
So I had to start approximating with my schools because, again, this being a European game, you have, and also just for the sake of simplicity, it's just elementary and high school, right? You're not going into junior high, middle school. You're not doing like a German gymnasium system where kids split off into 3 different branches.
Unless you're building and then it makes you.
The City Skylines DLC is their least popular. So what I ended up doing was, New Mexico has a weird system where you have elementary school is like 1st through 5th or kindergarten through 5th, depending. Middle school is 6th and 7th.
Oh.
Junior high is 8th and 9th, and then high school is 10th through 12th.
Well, that's just ridiculous.
So I just made little...
That's too many buildings.
No, it's so many buildings. We need our construction workers need jobs. God damn it!
That's a good point. Yeah.
And then you have the Christian schools on the edges of town that are K through 12, and it's just like 400 students at the same place for their entire lives. Like me,
I went to Catholic school. It was K through 8, and then 9 through 12.
There we go. So I instead just made some of the actual middle schools into elementary schools and some of the junior highs into high schools, and mostly got the city educated that way.
I have a question here for you, Roz, just about like the way that this game treats education. You know, it basically is the fundamental thing that drives the growth of your city. Because, you know, you need certain levels of education to staff certain buildings and stuff like that. But the way that it's abstracted makes it actually really pretty simplistic. And I'm just curious how, if you feel like from a game design perspective that this is to the benefit of the game or to the detriment of the game, or if it just kind of is what it is.
I guess it kind of is what it is, because it's like you don't have like a problem. Like, okay, let's say you're playing a game that's stupid hardcore about the simulation, like Workers and Resources Soviet Republic.
Yeah.
It's like you will find yourself in a situation where you didn't educate enough citizens. So now you can build a school, but it's unstaffed because no one's smart enough to run the school.
Sure.
I don't know that you could do that in like City Skylines, which is designed for, I'm not going to say more casual players because that's an insult, but you know,
more casual than the Workers and Resources.
Yeah, more casual than psychos like myself.
Yeah. People who are just a little less German.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I come home from the education factory and play the education simulator. Yeah.
Well, and that you bring up the employment factor for amenities. And amenities generally don't employ people in City Skylines.
Right.
That's right.
Because they just have to work the moment that you set them down. And that's where I realized I couldn't simulate like the modern economy of Gallup, New Mexico, because most people are working in retail, hotels, restaurants, and for the government, whether that's schools or the hospital. Because it's an actual, the 2 hospitals, one is federal government and one is owned by the county, because that's what you have to do in rural areas, is start getting your counties to like buy the hospital or it closes. But because of that, those are the main employers. Yeah, and gas stations and things like that. But like we don't really have heavy industry anymore. We used to have the bricks. We used to have the uranium. We used to have the coal mines. There's some oil getting pumped, but that doesn't really require a whole lot of employees to just have an ongoing oil well. And we also have the refinery, which does employ like 1% of the population, but it's also pretty far out of town. So you can't simulate that in this game. So I got the state capitalism DLC and I started running like oil and coal operations. But again, the actual deposits were so far out of the city, I had to mod how many squares I could buy because I had actually built them outside of the workable area.
Yeah, I didn't realize that you wouldn't be able to buy every single square. So my Doodleburg ended up being this very strange, abstract, like Rubik's Cube. Another interesting thing about this game is that you can build like a public library, but you can't necessarily make people go to it. I found was very interesting. Like I built like, I think something close to like 25 public libraries and like maybe a third of the population
reach very far.
went.
Yeah,
they're very, very small, very, very isolated. And I know I was benefiting the community by, you know, making 9 houses just vanish into air and its occupants seemingly just snap away into the ether forever.
Yeah, they're fine.
Just thinking, it's probably a good thing you can't make people go to the public library. Like, I don't know if I'd like, you know, some guys show up with guns and mounted bayonets, like, go fucking read.
I think it would somehow be scarier if they just showed up at your door with nothing, just smiling, saying, it's time to go to the library.
Yeah, that's a new SCP from AJ.
Well, we've talked a bit here about, you know, residential, the amenities that they require. Again, it's things like education. There's also fire and police, which are required in other areas as well to keep stuff from catching on fire and keeping crime low.
I will say for another game, I had cheats on. I was building the town of Odyssey from Adventures in Odyssey.
Yes.
And that nice little Christian town, I had to get so many workshop churches because there are no churches in Cities Skylines.
Right.
But that city, without having to worry about money or anything, just building the game as it existed on the map, we saw it focus on the family headquarters. Had the worst crime I have ever seen in any city in this game. It got up to like 25%. And that's
Holy
with
cow.
a prison. There is a prison and there are 2 police stations on that map in the first place. And I had to build so many more police stations to get the crime under control.
Yeah, I think one of the most unrealistic aspects of the whole game is when you plop down a police station in a neighborhood, everyone's really happy about
Everybody
it.
smiles.
Like, yeah!
Oh, yeah, you see the wave of smiles radiating away. Yeah.
I do love seeing the wave of smiles. That's maybe one of the most important features of the game.
Absolutely.
Police, you can save me from the librarymen.
Well, this is I think a feature of the game that makes it sort of, it gives it a bit of a hook, right? That you are always getting immediate feedback about your decisions.
It does show you that like people are happy, but it feels like it's only in the most abstract sense, especially when you have like services in City Skylines, which are like, I don't know, the hospital. The hospital actually has to physically dispatch the ambulance.
Yeah,
The crematorium, which has to dispatch the hearses urgently. Or
Everyone is dying. Everyone is dying so fast in these towns.
Yes.
it's like something that like made a lot of sense in like SimCity 4, where there was just like a radius, you know, and that's the building served all those businesses, so on and so forth. But, you know, in City Skylines, it was like, okay, everyone's happy to have the service near them, but will the vehicles actually be able to get to their house?
Right.
Tune in at 11 to find out.
Yeah, because there's this actual simulation with actual agents and actual Sims. CIM, not actionable.
Yep.
For some reason, like death and garbage have the same sort of functionality, which is where you either can...
Well, they're the same thing.
Yeah, you can put your trash in the dump, you can put your dead in a cemetery, and both fill up. People like having cemeteries by their house, but they don't like having dumps by their house.
Which is pretty accurate, I would say.
Then what you can
When
do...
I'm dead, just throw me in trash.
What you can do instead of having a dump or a cemetery, in theory, is build enough incinerators and crematoria.
Right.
But
Again, the same thing.
for some reason, the hearses and garbage trucks from the incinerators and the crematoria just they don't work the same way. they don't work as well. Even if your road is like green and it shows that it's in the workable area, they don't move as nimbly. So you still kind of want to keep your cemeteries and your dumps around, and then use your crematoria and your incinerators as like your backup to empty out the dump in the cemetery every now and then, instead of having them be your primary source of dumping. Say it.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, what?
No, primary source of dumping really got me.
Yeah.
By the logic of this game, a hearse should be an emergency vehicle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, with the amount of death and fires.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the fires in this town.
the
There's an
corpses-
arsonist running around Doodleburg.
The corpses just pile up. And
Yes.
a corpse left alone for too long will get an entire building abandoned. That didn't happen in this building that I live in. But
Oh no!
then abandoned buildings will burn more easily. And AJ, you just got to build those firehouses. I definitely have a responsiveness problem with firehouses where I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't build a firehouse in that neighborhood. Whoops.
I'll do it later, I guess. And then everything's
But
on
like
fire.
another
yeah.
thing
I
that really
just leave
works
it to the private developers to rebuild.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things that
Yeah.
really works in this game is all the overlays. And this is why I have trouble, because I played this game first and then played SimCity 4, where SimCity 4 half expects you to like have the physical manual as well, so you can reference things as you're going. But like the overlays are so nice and so helpful. You know, it's like I can see all the houses that don't have enough fire stations near them. I can see where the pollution is. It's bright purple. I can see how the wind blows. I can see, like, it has all of this great like information, but you do lose some more responsive things where like if a disaster has struck. One time I destroyed a city because I was building a new development, and I severed an electrical line. And after I finished building and everything, I was out of money, and I was like, okay, hit the space bar, hit play, let it all go, not realizing I had cut off power to the entire city.
Yeah.
And I didn't get a big warning sign. I got maybe a tweet saying, why is it so dark? Because I just hadn't like looked at the other side of my city for a long time.
Right.
And the problem with the tweets is people will be like, bodies are piling up. And then you'll see the neighborhood and it's, dead bodies everywhere. And then sometimes they'll tweet, bodies are piling up. And there's no problem at all.
And to the point of the bodies piling up, they could pile up not just in homes, but also in commercial areas.
Yes.
Which is, I guess, like you go to the store, you fucking die, and the body
Drop
just
till you
sits
drop.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the industrial deaths too. I like having my little company town cemetery.
I mean, the interesting one is that sometimes the overlays don't seem to necessarily correspond to where the vehicles can actually access. Because one thing I used for a lot of the power, politics, and planning YouTube videos was, okay, we are going to have city services because that just makes my life easier. I don't have to turn everything off.
Yeah.
But instead of putting them on screen or somewhere where you would see it in the cinematics, I just put like 50 of them at the end of the highway. You know, just because they had pretty good road access, they could cover the entire diorama really easily.
My city was such a hodgepodge of neighborhoods and like mixing industrial and commercial and residential zones together.
Don't mix it. Oh no.
Yeah.
You
yeah,
mixed
no.
industrial with residential,
Oh,
AJ?
it happened a lot, and I didn't realize what was happening for a long
Everyone
time.
was just dying.
This is a real thing. There is a zone in the Philadelphia zoning code called IRMX.
Okay.
That's industrial residential mixed use.
Fun.
You
Oh.
can
What
build
kind
an
of
industrial
industry?
and residential building. Yeah, it's going to be like mostly like light industry. You know, it's going to be like, okay, we have at the worst like a small metal shop in there.
Okay.
Probably it's going to
Okay.
be like, I don't know, you're going to have like you're going to have like painting with a twist in there.
Yeah,
You know.
that's probably okay, right?
It's an oil rig. We're just putting a giant oil rig in there.
Oh no, that's Los Angeles. They do that all the time.
Of course.
In Long Beach, yeah. Commercial is, I find, a bit confusing in this.
Yes. Always zone less than you feel like you need, because
Yes.
it'll just go empty really fast.
Because this is a big difference between City Skylines and SimCity. In SimCity, the amount of commercial that you need to zone usually feels like about the amount that you would expect.
Yeah.
Whereas in City Skylines, your entire GDP is driven by industry. The point of commercial is actually not to generate revenue, really. It's just to provide amenities to your citizens, which is pretty different.
Or draw tourists.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that too.
And there are commercial industry specializations in the DLCs and everything that are just even more mystifying. I don't know. They make the buildings look different.
They've invented this idea of like, okay, high density commercial retail.
Yeah.
Right. Which is invented from whole, not quite invented from whole cloth. Because, okay, that would encompass like a 12-story department store from like 1890.
Right. Like Macy's exists.
But Macy's, Wanamaker's, Marshall Fields, Woodward and Lothrop. I can go on. But those things like don't exist in a modern city. Like the huge department store. We used to have 12 of them in Philadelphia, and that was sufficient for 2 million people.
Right.
And that's just so like high density commercial doesn't make any sense in like the way that the game presents it. Like we need like a high density we need a 12-story convenience store. Although that's City Skylines 2 I'm thinking of right now. But.
Well, sure. There is that as well in the OG, because the way that it works as well with these buildings and how they level up is that the better that the building is doing and the more educated workers are working there, you're going to see the appeal of the building go up. Yeah. That's the way that they abstract the idea of like growth in land value. And so you can get to the situation where you do have the 5-star, full appeal commercial building, which is just going to be like, a clothing store that's 12 stories high. And it's like, this isn't a real thing. Which it's not, I can't be like, it's not totally realistic. Like, I get that they're abstracting it for the purpose of a game. It's just kind of strange.
Weird.
It feels weird, especially considering that you can't do any sort of mixed use zoning where, for instance, you mentioned 5/1s earlier, Roz. Like, you can't build like the 5/1 that has a grocery store on the ground floor.
I want my gosh darn bodega.
Yeah. Like a little bodega. Yeah.
Here in New York, I don't know if you've ever heard of this. We have stores out here where you can buy cigarettes and prepackaged snacks.
Oh, I think in Pennsylvania, I think they call those beer stores.
No, I'm not allowed to buy prepackaged snacks at the beer store, but I can buy cigarettes.
They're all loose. All the snacks are loose.
Yeah, no, you have to go into like one of those, like how they sell coffee sometimes. You got to go in with a scoop and pick the Cheez-Its out.
Yeah, I like the idea of a guy like selling Lucy like Doritos behind the counter. Like, it's not legal to buy one, but the taxes are so high, you might as well just buy like 3 Doritos.
Just going up to the counter and like looking around to make sure there's no cops, handing the guy a nickel, and he hands you a Dorito.
Gives you.
He deals down the Doritos like they're playing cards. Like 1, 2, 3, get out of here.
It's like a fistful of Chex Mix.
Yeah, man, no, I'm trying to quit. Give me an Oreo instead.
It always sucks when you're trying to get gummy worms and the bodega cat is just sprawled on top of them.
Yeah,
you have to
no Oreos, only Hydrox in this store.
Other than that, though, I mean, again, just to like point up industry, the fact that it exists, it creates a lot of ground and air pollution very quickly.
Yep. Unless you specialize your industry for agriculture or forestry. Right. Which doesn't ever pollute, like in real life.
Just like in real life.
Well, there's no pollution from agriculture. Definitely no kind of runoff.
The game does have a stand-in for air pollution in the form of noise pollution.
Right.
Yes.
Which represents both actual noise but also air pollution. Yeah.
Right.
That was something that always drove me insane when I was still playing the game to play the game. It's like, I live next to a trolley line. I get a lot of noise pollution. I have not died and had a hearse rapidly dispatched to my house yet.
Well, there are different kinds of noise pollution too. Like living next to a trolley line is very different from living in, let's say, Windsor, Ontario, directly across the Detroit River from Zug Island, the famous U.S. steel manufacturer that had that horrible hum that like made people sick.
We got one of those in New Mexico too. Taos.
I am only now realizing that's why so many of my citizens were dying, because when there was a power problem, I would just put a windmill right next to their house.
Yes,
you probably shouldn't have done
loud.
that. Yeah.
That's why, AJ, you look at the faces. They've got the little like headphone and they're mad because of all the sound.
I honestly couldn't see them.
AJ. You gotta click on stuff.
I couldn't see them. I thought they were just sick, so I put in more hospitals, and that kind of worked for a while.
I do really like that if you have minimal pollution in your town, people don't need to go to the hospital. They're fine. They're totally like you. many towns, if you're doing things right, you never have to build a clinic. You never have to and it's like,
yeah,
oh, okay.
it is. Unless you jump out from behind a corner and go, at a citizen, no one will ever die. But it's like the slightest noise and they're fucking gone.
It's a library atmosphere, the whole city. That's why they don't go to the libraries.
That's right.
Don't go. That's a very Finnish idea. It's like,
don't go.
Here in Finland, we have lots of hospitals, but all we really need is to just sleep out in the deep cold when we get the chance. We put our babies in the cold. They never need to go to the doctor. Just build a sauna.
Other big things that I just wanted to note about my city, just because I like telling the story of my city. We extended our residential area west of Rockland, which you'll recall was the area around the big fucking rock. There was kind of this beachy peninsula. So I built that out. I called it Chungus Point. It was a residential cul-de-sac. And then I also...
love a Chungus
That's
sack.
a good Josh word.
It's a Tim and Eric word originally, Chungus.
There was a point, Josh, where your Facebook, like you could put pronunciation of your name on Facebook and you wrote Muchungus Vorblum Singo.
Yeah, Muchungus, yeah.
Jesus.
And then the other thing was I platted out on the other side of the main boulevard, my arterial. I platted out another grid, and I called that Chungus Center.
Okay.
And I got to upzoning. And
hell yeah.
Upzoning is something that only becomes possible at a certain point when you've gotten to a certain population. That's when density becomes available to you. And something that's kind of strange about the game is that you can't just take low density and then like put high density over it and then it just regrows.
Even though they upgrade, like a house goes from having a small, like one household to 3 households or 5 households. It can't go up to high density from there.
This is the literal left NIMBY nightmare. When you upzone, immediately every building is demolished.
Just destroyed, leveled.
Yeah.
It's some real Robert Moses shit. And, that's what happened, right? I upzoned Chungus Center. I added a bunch of commercial high density space and I added offices. And offices are another thing that exists in this game. And as we mentioned earlier, office is just treated as industrial, except that it doesn't pollute.
So eventually is the idea that you just demolish all of your industry, all the old industrial one, and just put offices in its place?
Maybe.
Would that work as a strategy?
If you want to.
That's the end of history right there.
Yeah.
We're all going to have email jobs.
If you educate people enough, they won't go work in industry. And so they will work in high-level commercial or offices first. So as your population gets more educated, you're going to want to either get rid of industry and build offices, or if you have state capitalism and you're making a ton of money off of your like oil wells, then you will create little company neighborhoods that are out of range of the elementary school so that you always have workers to keep feeding the city coffers.
You have to create Morlocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have the Morlock neighborhood.
Yeah. You kind of have to become an unjust god at some point.
It's kind of an interesting thing because I do feel that in some ways this reflects reality. Like that, yes, once people are educated to a certain point, there is this stigma toward, traditional industrial jobs and stuff like that. But I also think that it's a strange way to build your simulation. I'm interested in sort of the built-in assumptions that we get in this model.
Everyone's gonna get an extremely high-level degree, and they're gonna go work in an office and make half of what someone who drives a bus makes.
Yeah, and to be clear, the bus drivers in this game, at least in my town, have their work cut out for them because the bus route, like adding stops thing is very finicky. And so I would click sometimes and it would just like loop around the neighborhood like 8 times to get to the spot.
And it doesn't matter really that it does.
It really doesn't. As long as everyone's sort of covered. Yeah.
Building the tracks is one thing, but like actually setting down the stops is very easy to do. You just sort of click your way through it. And yeah, it is fiddly around the edge of the road. If you ever want to revise it, it's a fucking nightmare, and you're better off just destroying it completely and starting over.
And we'll talk a bit more about transit options, I think, in the second half. But I think I wanted to just close out this first half of it by now we've really outlined all of the tools, right, that you can use to build stuff in the way that these tools interact with each other. And, Roz, I'm wondering, given that you have experience in civil engineering and the way that cities grow, broad question, but to what extent does this reflect the real world mechanics through which cities are built?
It's about as good as it can be while still being fun.
Sure.
I mean, other than I don't know that like we should be worrying about dead bodies as much as they do in this game. It's usually that's something that's handled between a hospital and a funeral home.
Yeah.
And then they, scam the family out of as much money as possible. City Skylines, given how it was built, how quickly it was done, how few people worked on it, and how great of a thing it is, I can't complain at all about how it works. Obviously there's been 700 DLCs since then, and I have some criticisms of a lot of those ones.
63 because this is a paradox game.
Yes, exactly. In terms of like the actual functioning of a city, it's good enough to be plausible, and especially if you're like me and you're like, okay, I just want to put in buildings that I like and I want to see in the game. That was the big thing for me is like, if something doesn't work the way I like, I can change it so it does.
Sure.
Well, that was something that I mentioned earlier. There was a talk that Carolina, I can't pronounce her last name, the lead on this project, gave at GDC Europe in 2015. And one of the big things she said about the philosophy of the game is that we want people to be able to continue to grow the thing while destroying things at a relative minimum. Like, it should be mostly focused on continuing to grow on top of the infrastructure that already exists. And the extent to which they succeeded on that, I think, is sort of split. And I think we'll talk about that a bit more in the second half, because we're going to get more into some of the mechanics around routing, traffic, stuff like that. And then we're going to change our focus to the sequel, City Skylines 2, a great game that everybody loves. So stay tuned for that, and we'll be with you again right after this.
Good afternoon, everyone. We now call the July 15th, 2044 meeting of the Doodleburg, East Carolina Town Council to order. Our first item on the docket, a vote to determine whether money shall be allocated for Chirp X's Fill the Hole project. We would like to open the floor to the public for their thoughts at this time. Oh, yes, a volunteer. We yield the floor.
Thank you, Councilman Mancouncil. My name is Andy Phillips. I teach English at Prescott Doodleburg Memorial High, one of the 7 high schools located concerningly near the abandoned industrial park that won't stop catching on fire. I come here today in opposition of the proposed Fill the Hole project that would see one of Doodleburg's great landmarks destroyed, desecrated, and transformed into a ChirpX launch site where the renowned social media mogul Charles Foster Chungus would be able to, quote, fire my dick planes into God's giant sky pussy, end quote.
Yeah, gonna get that sky puss, ahoy hoy!
Esteemed council members, we cannot and should not allow this project to go forward. Not just for the logistical nightmare of putting a launch pad 5 feet away from our town's only natural gas deposit, but for the very soul of Doodleburg itself. I come from a long line of proud Doodleburgians. The Phillips family have been here since the very founding of this town, when my great-great-grandfather Philip Phillips and his horsewife Denise started their farm on the north side of town. Ever since then, we have seen the town grow and change. From the great power outage of 66, to the great power outage of 89, to the great power outage of literally yesterday that caused some 4,000 people to immediately vanish from their homes because our god mayor decided they shouldn't exist, I guess. Sorry, can we just talk for a second? None of the formal procedure, just... It's exhausting, you know? Living in a town where your closest friends and neighbors can just vanish like that? Marcy Barnes, my neighbor and lifelong friend, had just married the love of her life, got her dream job at one of Doodleburg's 18 office parks, was just about to start her life, but then her house just happened to be in the way of optimizing traffic flow, so poof, she's gone. And I'm the only one who even seems to remember her at all. We used to go up to the hole as kids. We'd climb up that hill littered with 20 to 25 windmills and see all of Doodleburg below us. The smell was terrible, retchingly so. But Marcy taught me how to tie a handkerchief over my nose to keep from throwing up. Like bandits, she said. God, I thought she was the coolest kid I'd ever met. We'd shoot at each other with finger guns, play Thelma and Louise, pretending to blow up the windmills like they were that creepy truck driver's gas-filled semi, until we lost track of time and the sun would slowly set over our toxic waste river that also won't stop catching on fire, and we'd make our way home again. We always said that we'd find time to go back up there, do one last heist up on that hill. And now, I guess we never will. The hole was once a shit-infested environmental biohazard, but through every permutation of this town and every whim of our god mayor, it remained absolute and became, against all odds, part of our town, part of us, part of me. So please, I'm begging you, don't take her away from me. Don't take it away from me. You've taken so much. Please. Please just...
Oop, it appears that Andy Phillips no longer exists and never did. His house is and always was an oil refinery. All those in favor of filling the hole, say aye.
Aye!
All opposed? The ayes have it. Charles Foster Chungus, you have your spaceport.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna get that Sky pregnant. Ahoy hoy!
Meeting adjourned.
So we're back, and we
Yeah.
are going to talk now about something that everybody knows and everybody loves, which is traffic.
I spent a lot of my childhood in traffic growing up in San Diego. Like it was, the freeways down there are not as extreme as LA, which is like, you know, driving on hard mode, but it got pretty bad. I went to a commuter high school, so I was a 45-minute drive from my high school, and depending on traffic, that could take up to an hour and a half. And there was no way of knowing before you left how long it would take to get places. And in City Skylines, there's no telling how long it will take to get anywhere because there's like 9,000 cars and I don't know where they all came from.
The road.
I wish there were only 9,000 cars.
Right.
When the game first came out, traffic was just terrible.
It was very
and
bad.
Unfortunately, it's what the entire game is built on. Is things moving in individual cars and trucks to each place to get things and people where they need to go. And none of them use the left lane. That was the main issue, was like everything would just stack up in one single lane all the time. And now it does not do that quite the same way.
I don't think there was that much of a difference in actual traffic flow when everyone merged into the lane as soon as possible. Versus now, it's just made it appear less bad.
Yeah.
I see.
Because you don't
I
have
see.
just like one single long string of cars that go back all the way to the edge of the
there's
map.
like 2 lanes that are half as long that are backed up.
Well, it is one of those things, too, where when you're at the very small scale, like I was at the beginning of the game, you know, it's like, ooh, there's little cars and they're going down the little road. How fun. But the problem is that, as we had mentioned earlier, with things like hearses, garbage trucks, fire trucks, things like that.
Regular trucks.
Regular trucks.
Euro trucks.
Monster trucks.
Trucks that climb on rocks.
Trucks that become robots.
It's
That's right.
lots and lots of trucks. Buy
and
now
lots
for
of trucks.
$19.99 and we'll throw in lots and lots of planes for no additional purchase. Please pay extra shipping and handling, $15.
That's actually a different DLC. If you could have monster trucks that just delivered everyone directly to their destination, that'd be ideal.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Sign me up for the Gravedigger DLC.
At a certain point in City Skylines, like, I didn't really zoom in that often, but had I zoomed in and just seen like a whole parade of monster trucks, I'd be like, yeah, that checks out. There's
that
no
sounds
monster
good.
truck arena, but like they've got to be coming from somewhere, perhaps the shithole in the north side of town.
Yeah.
But Josh, you, when we had like just started playing City Skylines, you sent us a note in the Slack channel saying, if you want to have more minute control over traffic signals, download this mod here.
Right. And I was like, Josh, I don't even want this. There's no way AJ wants this.
I was like, in what world would I ever care about that?
You're gonna have to download Traffic Manager President Edition.
TMPE. It's such a good mod. Look, I get it. I'm not the same kind of gamer as you. I actually care about, like, I want to manage my simulation. I'm not a fucking basic casual like
I don't just want to hit the win button.
I want my meatball. I need reward. I need brain go ding hard. And it's
You're gonna come on my podcast, AJ.
Yes, yes, of course. What's so funny too is that it's like I didn't even fuck around with different road types, so I have just like the two-way street, and it got me through pretty much the whole game. You don't
actually
kind of
does
necessarily,
now, yeah.
Yeah, in a way that I'm sure when it first started out that wasn't the case, but like
that's also how I usually like started cities. Was like, okay, we're having 2 lanes with parking on every street.
Yeah,
and I am never upgrading this. I'm going to fight God to avoid upgrading this.
Well, and that's the thing. The game makes you build the beginning of your town off of a little like nubbin that is exiting straight off of an interstate. It is designed for you to fuck this up later.
Oh yeah,
and be like, oh, I have to demolish the first neighborhood I built. It makes you have to kill your child.
You have to. You have to become Robert Moses.
Yeah,
right.
And you can just refuse. You can just not do it.
You can say no. You can say no to being Robert Moses, but you have to be smart about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is one of a number of things where it's like they didn't quite hit the vision that they were going for.
Yeah.
The dream is a world in which you're able to just continue building up and on top of stuff that already exists. But when it comes to your transportation networks, at some point you are going to hit a point where they can't grow anymore, and you're going to have to widen your roads, which destroys stuff, or redesign the neighborhoods completely, which involves doing Robert Moses style mass clearance of, urban renewal.
Or you have to build so many bus depots because everyone keeps piling up at the bus stops.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And it's like, I can't run as many buses as I need to on this route.
And that's the thing, is like you can alleviate the issue by building different kinds of transit lines. There's with DLC. With DLC, you have trams, you have metros, you have buses, you have ski lifts for some reason.
Monorails, blimps.
The blimp
helicopters.
The blimp is another hangover from Cities in Motion. It's like, here's a piece of shit that doesn't fucking work, but we're gonna put it in every game.
You got to use the ski lift to get up to see the giant shit canal on the north side of town. It's on top of a mountain.
And then you can also do commuter trains, which are very mystical. I don't know how you get the outside connection. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. And also the rail line gets way more plugged up than the roads do by the end of the game.
Oh yeah, I had trains just fully on top of
each other. Because most maps have just a single connection coming in from one side or 2 connections on opposite ends.
Yeah, and they have like 100 billion like intercity trains that go straight through the city without stopping that just exist.
And then you can build some intra-city trains that are on a separate line. So there are a lot of things, and there are airports that you can also get outside connections from as well. So there are a lot of things that you can do to handle logistics and also handle the movement of people that, for me at this point, do seem to do a lot, especially the trolleys seem to accomplish quite a bit. But at the expense of having a separate road for, here is like a 4-lane road, here is a 4-lane road with trees, here is a 4-lane road with bus lanes, here's a 4-lane road with bus lanes and bike lanes, here's a 4-lane road with bike lanes and trolley lines, but no bus lanes. Here's a 4-lane road with bus lanes, no bike lanes, and trolley lanes. Here's a 4.
Just kind of scroll down the menu.
The menu is a single line, which is great in vanilla. Right. There aren't that many pieces in the base game. You just click on what you need. But at some point, they needed to change the menus so that there's some vertical elements so that they can store everything 2-dimensionally.
Well, and this is why, you get another mod that cleans up the menus for you.
Okay.
This is, which is, I mean, I know that
I looked
I'm
through
saying
the
that
mods. I didn't find a good mod for the menu, and maybe it just didn't show up in my search.
There's a couple decent ones, but this again goes back to the point of how, really this game is pretty simple at the end of the day. Again, this is a game that was built by 14 people over the course of 2 years. Sure. Most of the really interesting complexities were added in the modding scene. And I think that makes a lot of people, it caused a lot of people to think that the game itself is a lot more complex and feature rich than it really is.
I will say that even in vanilla, I found it almost inscrutable, but that's, different strokes for different folks.
Scrutability doesn't necessarily mean it's complex though, right?
Exactly.
Like it has a few high stakes interdependent systems so that when you make a little fuck up, like severing a single power line, it can destroy everything.
Like Goofy and Max's relationship. Once power line is severed, there's nothing there anymore.
There we go.
That's what the sequel movie is all
yeah,
about.
I mean, this is your typical game for Germans. And AJ, your Italian-American mind can't understand this.
I'm also German,
You need the meatball.
So
you need the meatball handed to you. And as a Swede, I understand. We have much worse meatballs that we also like to have handed to us. But there's no meatball here, just Germans.
She got that delicious brown sauce, though.
Oh, they got that. I love that.
Oh, and the thing about Brian's meatballs,
Yeah.
they have horse in them. Those meatballs.
Oh, they do. Yeah, Brian's
Wait, do Swedish meatballs have horse?
Just the ones at IKEA. Do you
Just the
remember that?
IKEA ones.
Oh,
Yeah.
I only ate the ones that my grandmother
anymore.
made, and she did not make them with horse. So
They were caught using horse meat, or there was a scandal where they were accused of using horse meat, and they did change the meat that they used, but they claimed it wasn't horse.
sounds like
so
a bunch of
whole...
Phillips up there in Sweden. And I thought they were Allens.
My parents almost accidentally bought a horse meat sausage in Switzerland once. And they were like,
shit.
oh, wait, this is gross. Putting that back.
I said Allen because of the Allen wrench that you used to,
Oh,
as opposed to maybe
I
a
see.
Phillips head screwdriver.
Oh my God! Yeah. Okay.
Can't use that on IKEA.
No.
That joke is a series of complex interconnected systems.
It sure
It requires a tutorial
You got no
to walk
meatball.
me through.
You got no horse meatball.
We got to write a whole textbook about joke dynamics.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
That'll be great for Sim Joke, which is
Joke.
always online.
Is this fun? Like the way that traffic works in this game, they wanted to simulate something in a very specific way. And to me, it's kind of fun to alleviate this traffic. And I find it very fun to download stuff like TMPE and be like, this road can only make right turns. But is that actually fun, or am I a goddamn sicko?
After doing Transit DLC, they also put in a patch for the vanilla game, right? Where you can go into your intersections and change them to having stop signs or stoplights. Other intersections are handled automatically. Like it kind of figures out whether it's just a yield thing or a stop sign thing based on like one-way roads and whatever. I like building the transit lines, but then I should probably just be playing Cities in Motion.
Sure.
Managing the roads themselves always makes you kind of sad because you're having to tear down people's homes. And the game really tries to make that low stakes, but you're still tearing down people's homes. And sometimes you tear down an amenity and then you get the wave of sad faces.
Although amusingly,
Boo,
you
God, Mayor,
don't
boo.
get the wave of sad faces for demolishing people's homes for some reason.
No, people are neutral about it.
I thought when you demolish people's homes, it was just a sad face for the people in the home.
Yeah, no, exactly.
You'll see sometimes a little like down arrow for like the property value just depressed because you've changed the state of things. But like, yeah, I mean, this game wants you to be more ruthless, I think.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't want you. It'll also just let you keep your city at the size that it is, I suppose. But then that's not, there are still goals that you need to reach in order to get all the toys.
I mean, what I will say is that traffic, I didn't really pay almost any attention to it. And I got through to like the final game.
Yeah, you got to 90,000 people.
Game. I actually ended up getting to 140 by the time I finished.
Yeah, my computer can't run fast enough for me to get there, but I was on the way.
Yeah. But it didn't really impact my gameplay too much, or at least not in any way that my brain could really wrap itself around. I feel as though as long as you're operating mostly on a grid and you have bridges that connect over rivers, you'll be able to get through the game pretty okay. And I fucked around with some train stuff too, but it was mostly just to like service the industrial areas. I never provided like public transit train wise.
Yeah.
I just did the maddening bus where you get on and ride for 40 minutes before you get anywhere.
I consider it a personal failing anytime I build a road wider than 2 lanes.
But here's the thing. If you build another lane, that fixes the traffic.
True.
Oh yeah, just one more lane, bro.
That's
One
what
more lane,
AJ
baby.
needed
One
to
more.
get to his Catholic school growing up.
Come on, baby. We couldn't expand lanes in San Diego because there was a nuclear facility right the fuck there.
Well, that's why we need to denuclearize San Diego for more lanes.
There's also one exclusive lane up near Miramar where Tom Cruise can just ride his motorcycle at sunset. The whole freeway has to shut down just so we can get that shot.
Every night.
Every night, the man needs a hobby.
What about rail networks, though? Because we talked a bit about the roads. Rail is another thing in this game, but also the way that it works is kind of strange.
Yeah. Outside connections are weird. With the road, you always kind of have cars coming through. But like some cities, you won't have the rail in your first square. And the game is not going to have trains running through. The last city I just built, the one that I actually got really big, had just one single connection coming in, and then it stopped by an abandoned factory. A fun little bit of world building there. And so that had no trains on it until I started loading things up with freight.
Sure.
So you can build a commuter rail. And if you're not building other connections in the city to make it like intra-city rail, that thing can just fucking sit there for a while and no one comes in. Unless you're building unique buildings, which are the laser targeted for tourists to come and see things, like the Statue of Liberty.
I think I built a nightmare city because I put all of my unique buildings extremely far apart from each other. And so like a tourist would come and there's not like a tourist hub for them. They see one building and then have to travel. Like what I'm imagining in my city's traffic is like 19 hours to get to the north part of the city where they can see the second big building.
The way the railroads work is like it's annoying, especially in the original game, especially is that okay, I built a train station, I connected up to the national train network, and I get random passenger trains from across the border. And a lot of times it's like, okay, I have a train come in, it has 4 people on it. And it comes in, it fucks up my whole network, and then it leaves. It's the same with the freight trains, right? It'll be like, okay, we have this huge backlot of trucks at the freight station.
Yeah. Right.
And then a freight train comes in and it picks up like, I don't know, 4 tons of freight and leaves. And it's like, well, the idea of trains, and like, at least in my mind, is that you move a lot of people and a lot of freight with them.
Right.
And a lot of times it just does not work like that. And then if you try and have a more complex network, you have to really start thinking about it, because you if you're building a commuter train network, you have to ensure that these trains that come from across the map are not going to randomly come in and fuck up your scheduled services. And freight trains are totally arbitrary and you can't do anything about them, which admittedly is kind of how it works in real life, but also kind of not.
I mean, I found that when I built a freight hub near one of my industrial cores, it actually made truck traffic worse.
You have train stations which you can put next to the road, and it has to be by the road. You can't build it along the train line, which is always like, okay, now you have to adjust that. Then there are even other things that move freight, like boats, harbors, that they realize, oh, you're not going to be able to line it up with the shore and the road at the same time. So you build it, and then those have just a 2-lane road on them. And so you can't readjust the road. You can't add lanes. Right. And I need to add just one more lane. Nor can you make them.
Then it will fix
like
it.
On the harbor ones, you can't make them one-way roads either.
Right.
So like, it just means your train stops at a certain place and the trucks just start coming out of it. And then the other trucks are trying to deliver freight to that same train, and they're all running into each other on the exact same stretch of road.
And the European mind cannot conceive of the idea that a lot of industries load freight directly onto the train, no truck involved. Obviously this is difficult with the simulation. I think this is, I as a big train guy, I'm like, you could have done so much more with trains. I understand that there's a lot of this would be difficult to simulate, but like a lot of times the industry, you just load the freight directly onto the train. Right.
It's just
it'd be
right
nice
there.
SimCity 4 managed to simulate that, but that was statistical, so it was easy. I don't know what you do agent based.
Yeah,
that would be like difficult.
Well, and it's like like you pointed out, Roz, in your video about the industry DLC, is like you can have a fucking refinery and oil derricks and everything. Everything still has to move by trucks, even though it's a giant facility. And in real circumstances, they build pipes to move
Right.
all the liquid things through.
I learned about a new form of transportation recently that drove me insane, which is the multi-product pipeline.
It sounds like a name for my colon.
Oh, come on.
Similar concept, though. Okay, so you have a refinery, right?
Yeah.
You have a
Yeah.
refinery. It's somewhere, and you need to distribute multiple kinds of things to various industries along the pipeline.
Yeah.
Gasoline, jet fuel, diesel, so on and so forth. Rather than having dedicated pipelines for each one, what you do is you start pumping one product into the pipeline, and then you call up the guys who have the valve and say, all right, in about a week, turn your valve on, you'll get jet fuel. Or in about a week and a half, turn your valve on, you'll get diesel fuel, so on and so forth. I have no idea what happens at the end of the pipe where they get a whole horrible
Right.
mash of just random hydrocarbons. Apparently this works really well.
Jesus. I'm not an engineer, so I'm just going to assume that it works until proven otherwise.
Well, apparently that's how most airports get their jet fuel.
There's something
Okay.
kind of Willy Wonka about it. It's like you
Oh my
turn
God.
the
Oh,
valve
yeah.
and it's peanut butter, and then you turn it again and it's tangerines or whatever. I don't
And
know.
if you turn it again, it's the remains of Augustus Gloop.
He told me he was just fine. Willy Wonka lied to me.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't anything to do with the pipeline pressure. It was diabetes.
Aw.
Midway through the pipe.
Yeah. This is a different pipe. He just died
Entirely
and fell in a
coincidental.
separate pipe in a different place back home in Ulm.
Yeah. Well, it is funny because, you know, after the pipe, he just kind of longed to get back in. It was one of those things that, like, you know, he couldn't sleep in his bed anymore. He had to purchase a pipe. Very
Well,
easy
actually,
to do.
in some pipelines, they use a thing called a pig to separate the products from each other, which Augustus Gloop would be in this scenario because he blocks the whole pipe.
That's not nice. That's not nice he's a child.
Well, no, this is
Okay.
grown up Augustus. This is grown up Augustus
Oh,
Gloop.
okay.
Yeah.
In that case, you know what? It's the natural consequence of his actions. He is a rational agent acting in a free market economy, and it's good, actually.
Yeah, there's a lot of rational agents in this game. I don't know
For sure.
what programming an irrational agent would look like, but maybe that's something to look at. Colossal Order.
It's probably a good idea. Yeah. Someone who just does something random every day.
Imagine being the one irrational agent in a town of just rational
like
agents.
we've got disasters. Their disasters are all pretty vanilla. Earthquakes. The meteor is the farthest they go out. They don't have the giant dinosaur. I assumed SimCity 2000 had UFOs, but apparently that was wrong.
No, it's got a guy with a big eye, one big eyeball.
Okay, that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like,
it's all right.
I said the prison planet. I was confusing that with the pirate planet, which is a different Doctor Who serial.
Oh, okay.
I think it might be from Shada, which is one of the lost episodes.
Okay.
Now, but I think it could be another one. I'm not sure.
So like it's one of those episodes that's going to be found on film in like Morocco in 3 years or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have most of Shada, but not all of it.
Well, they have to recite the whole thing.
Tom Baker flawlessly reciting the Shada. He's got the really long scarf, but it's a Palestinian keffiyeh.
So I'm
willing.
curious.
There's a market.
Yeah.
We've talked a bit now about the way that these traffic networks all kind of work together or don't. And we've talked a bit about industry and the way that works. I found that one of the best ways that you can solve the traffic problem is just by upgrading to the knowledge economy, because then you're less reliant on exporting physical product.
Yeah.
And what this did for me, well, I'll just tell you again, just to continue the story of the town of Reddington, right? I was like, okay, I've gone to TMPE. I've tried to like force right turns in my downtown core.
Yeah.
This wasn't quite working. And so I said, fuck it. It's time for the knowledge economy. I zoned out an area that I called College Town. I put it right next to my liberal arts college because I had
so you have the campuses, yeah.
I had the campus DLC.
Yeah.
I located that just across from the college. So it was like, I've got College Town, I've got the college, and then on the other side, I had a residential neighborhood called Child Minds, MINDS, and then directly next to child minds were the child mines, MINES, and that of course was a large industrial zone.
Okay.
And I realized that, again, the child mines, in no small part due to the fact that they were, hooked up to rail, I needed to turn it into the knowledge economy. And so I relied on my college, Reddington College. I gave it a whole bunch of grants. I, built out a bunch of facilities, and I was able to slowly transform the child mines into effectively an extension of child minds, the neighborhood, by enhancing the minds of the children in the child minds.
The one problem that you run into, though, when you deprioritize your industry, is that your commercial buildings will start showing a symbol that you've never seen before in hours and hours of gameplay that's like, we don't have enough stuff. We can't get enough goods transported to us because the roads aren't wide enough. You haven't built enough lanes to get all the trucks to your commercial zones. So you have to import a lot more, and you have to start figuring out how to get your import connections easily hooked up with enough lanes to your commercial areas.
You have to build a train station, and then there's a horrible amount of trucks that pour out. It's miserable.
As every train station I've ever been to is like, just trucks everywhere.
I mean, you could also build the cargo ship, harbors specifically, and this is genuinely something I love about this game, is that every single ship that comes in Tokyo drifts.
Yes.
Yeah.
They all go sideways
harbor
through each other because they don't take up physical space.
Okay. If you have azimuth thrusters, that's kind of how you do it in real life.
Okay.
Oh, shit.
With the clipping and everything?
The boats clip through each other in real life?
The clipping is usually bad. They tried that in Baltimore this year. It was not good.
Got it. Yeah, I heard about that.
It was weird how when I was on the cruise ship, when we would dock, we would clip through a different cruise ship. Yeah. But there was another version of me that I would briefly see in between
and pass through for a moment. The two of you were like overlaid by yourself.
Yeah. It kind of looked like an anime intro when like a guy is looking at his evil self.
Yeah.
How do you know he was the evil one?
No, that's what I'm saying. He actually seemed pretty cool, so that made me go through a whole spiral.
So we should have made this podcast with J.A.
Yeah. He's my self.
Just going back to our cities, I actually built Gallup basically just up to the level that it actually is at in real life. I got up to 20,000 people. Gallup has stagnated around 20,000 people for many decades now. And I realized I could not build the city any bigger because the sewage was flooding Arizona. Like the whole West was just being taken over by the Gallup shit pool. So I kind of left it at that, but it was interesting to see like the ways that different things like don't work when you're trying to transport it to a real place and real ecology. Like the fact that there's just no accounting for desert ecology whatsoever. There's no Gallup has to have a ton of drainage infrastructure, not just drainage under the ground, manholes, things like that, but above the ground in the neighborhoods. There are whole areas where the road stops and it's just a big drainage trench, basically. And that doesn't matter. If you get rain in a desert town and city skyline such as it exists, it doesn't change anything. The water dynamics don't shift.
There is a mod for that.
I was looking and I didn't find one, so point me to it after that.
Okay.
Flash
flooding? Miserable. Everyone hates it, but it does exist.
And we can't build classic New Mexico water towers, which are big tanks that you just put on top of the mountain. And it doesn't need to be a tower. And then it just goes down naturally because it's on a mountain.
Sure. AJ, what you mentioned that there were things about your city that you ended up feeling pretty bonded toward. It was like, this is the nice thing about my town. What were the
hole? I really love the hole.
other than the whole, were there other big pieces that sort of like ended up feeling like, oh, this is my little cool spot? Like for me, it was Child Minds and the Child Minds. But
I know. The truth of it is, Josh, I just started making it really nightmarish at a certain point. There was a hillside that I could have terraformed, but instead I just like made 4 little like roads that looked like a hand, like a little fingers that kind of went nowhere. And there was a single house that I built on the top of the hill by itself.
Oh yeah,
that was
those are fun. Yeah, I like doing those.
That was in constant need of water and electricity. And I would just periodically, like every other week, just take it away briefly and then put it back and then take it away and then put it back. It was that I had fun with. But then honestly, it was like kind of watching the trains all go by themselves.
That's
Once
really
I got
cool.
airports, once I got the airports, that was really fun. The way they animate the airplanes in this game is so fun. They just kind of like go into the sky when they fly
I like
away.
that sometimes they back up.
The game got really actually enjoyable for me once I had become a megalopolis and I was starting to like do things in order to get the various monuments. And I did end up building the Eden Project at the end of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I thought you did a really good job with that part of the game. What I didn't agree with was you using generative AI to produce fake critical reviews of your town.
Yes, that man was fired for it, and it was really weird how midway through my campaign, like one of the little rational agents looked up at me and asked me a question, and then an usher who had like appeared out of nowhere,
the usher for
him.
your living room. Yeah,
What is this a reference to?
Megalopolis.
Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis.
Well, and then you started touching your Sims.
This feels like a pretty decent place to leave the original City Skylines. You know, we all played it.
so.
We all had some fun, some of us more than others.
If you got to 140,000, you had to be doing something right. Because to expand, you have to take on a project, right? You have to be like, well, this is all running just fine now. Now I have to like think up something new and drive myself to do it. And sometimes I don't have the motivation. I'm like, this is when I stop playing the game because I don't want to build a new neighborhood right now.
It gets easier when you get past 65,000 Sims because that's the agent limit.
Yeah.
And then after that, the game panics and it just fakes it from there. And then on out. Then you get less traffic, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Make the city bigger. You get less traffic.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's just the milestones sort of become a little bit lugubrious. It takes a very long time to play this game, even if you are going at 3 times the speed. And maybe this wouldn't necessarily be if I could like leave it alone, but because I'm bad at the game, you kind of have to babysit it.
Well, that's why you have
because
to
more
save.
catastrophes are happening.
Save
I
and
do.
then you leave it alone.
I wonder if the DLCs added more of those incentives at the end, or 'cause
not
I
at the
played
end. No,
them
not
in a
really.
No.
It's more mid-game stuff that they add.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I ever built one of the monuments.
Oh,
really?
Yeah.
They're kind of fun. I mean,
It's kinda
like
your little
You were
cap.
busy
It's
making
like-
art, Roz. You were building magnificent structures.
Yeah, I would love to see Power Politics and Planning about the real effects of a space elevator.
So I wanted to then move on here from the original City Skylines and just talk for a little bit here about Skylines 2, because the thing about sequels is that it is very, very difficult to get one right because everybody has different expectations for what it's going to be. And of course, you cannot please all the people all the time. And there are a lot of things about City Skylines that people love. You know, we've talked about the design choices, the environment, the modding, the fact that the maps are big and they
As
can
opposed
be
to
even
SimCity.
bigger. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And those maps can get even bigger once they're modded. The fact that all this DLC added so many features that you kind of forget like just how pared down the core game is. Yeah. And so when time came around to develop City Skylines 2, Colossal Order had a pretty tall project on their hands. A tall project? A tall order?
A colossal order.
It was a tall order.
A Colossal Order is a column that goes more than one story, so that would be a tall order.
There you go. Paradox announced in March 2023 that Colossal Order was working on Skylines 2, and around that same time, Colossal Order also announced that they were going to be end-of-lifing Skylines 1. They were moving their entire team over, and it's still a pretty small studio. I think they have like 40 people now or something. Like, it's not big.
They don't have enough people for what they need to do.
No, they don't. We kind of saw this with the way that the game stumbled toward release.
Slouched towards release, one might say.
And much like Bethlehem in that regard.
Well, Bethlehem wasn't the one slouching.
Slouching toward Bethlehem.
Yeah, but Bethlehem wasn't slouching itself.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
If I built Bethlehem in City Skylines, trust me, it would be slouching.
Maybe Allentown, maybe Easton.
Yeah.
We're living
Really
here.
anywhere in the Lehigh Valley, as far as I'm concerned. But
Cutstown.
August, September was when Paradox gave some early release code to YouTubers.
Yeah.
I think you were part of that, right, Roz? You got that early build or no?
I got an early build in July 2021.
In July 2021?
Yeah, it was the big pre-release build. There was a weird build up to the release of City Skylines 2.
Right.
They did the thing where they had everyone play City Skylines 2 on a crane suspended in the air.
Oh. Okay.
That was weird. They did the entire airports DLC because they were paranoid. They were terrified of not having anything to show for several years.
Right, I remember that.
Airports
yeah.
and then Sunset Harbor, which was like, here are a bunch of ideas we tossed out of the other DLCs. Now we're putting them in.
And they were originally supposed to ship the game both for PC and console in like October of 2023. And they ended up being like, hey, that console version, it's going to come later on. We don't know when, but like that was
maybe when the consoles catch up with the most hardcore PC hardware out there right now.
Exactly.
Sure.
And around the same time, I remember there was a lot of expectation management for the PC version because it was like clearly this game was going to be released in an unfinished state.
Yeah.
And they were doing their best to manage expectations.
And, like you talked about simulator or about sequels being hard because you have to add features, you have to continue whatever. A sequel to a simulator is especially hard because you're just going to have less. You're just going to be back in newborn, nude baby, slouching out of Bethlehem form. And you're going to have to wait for some of the things that were in the base game, that were in the previous game for a long time at this point.
It's difficult to say exactly what went wrong. In July of 2021, the game looked very similar to how it did on the day of release.
Okay.
There were definitely like some things that changed. I think a lot of things that changed for the better. It looked more visually appealing when it was released than it did in 2021, but that's not saying much. You had this very long, slow development cycle. Definitely the release was overhyped. I mean, they rented out that huge billboard on that building in China. They did the crane thing. They did a whole bunch of really stupid stuff. It was like, this is going to be the biggest game release in history. The game didn't turn out very good. Mm-hmm. The big thing was the game did not perform anywhere near as well as City Skylines 1 did, right, at release, given the hardware of the time, relatively. You would expect that, okay, City Skylines 2 is building on a legacy of this very accessible city simulator that everyone can put on their potato of a computer. City Skylines 2 was just not that. Mm-hmm. And it took a long time for anyone to figure out what the hell was happening, why it was not very performant. And it sort of came down to teeth.
Teeth? I don't know this term.
Teeth, the things in your mouth.
Yeah.
Literal teeth.
Okay. I guess this is...
I remember this.
Okay, yeah, I was not... I know about like traffic and stuff like that. I did not know about...
Yeah.
Wait, teeth are coming. Am I excited?
So they partnered with a company that claimed to be an AI company.
No.
That wasn't actually an AI company.
Yes.
I'm
Okay.
shocked.
To generate the various Sims, right? Your citizens.
Yeah.
Right, like the actual assets that would be used for those little
the
guys.
actual assets who are the people, right? The agents, so on and so forth, with like absurd amounts of detail.
Well,
right?
and if it is AI, which it isn't, but like even like AI generated models have way too many fucking triangles on them. They're just insanely big things, and they don't move
they
well
were
at all.
procedurally generated, but they called it AI.
Of course, I love it.
Sure.
So every individual tooth was modeled in every single sim. There's like a huge amount of polygons in like the hair. There was like a huge amount of polygons and like just everywhere. Now, this is not necessarily a problem, which we'll get to in a bit.
Yeah.
There were errors here in like the rendering of these various characters that were procedurally generated that led to a lot of them being rendered with missing clothes.
Hell yeah.
to an uncomfortable level of detail, including children.
No.
Yeah.
Nope.
So that was a thing that happened, and there was a lot of processor cycles being dedicated to all of that.
Who are these children coming down?
There was a similar problem with some of the buildings. Some of like
nude buildings.
You would have a parking lot kiosk.
Okay.
You would have like a kiosk in the parking lot, and then inside, for some reason, there was a whole desktop computer modeled to extreme detail for no reason.
What was there anything on the computer? Was he like playing solitaire?
These are the important
Good
questions.
question. I don't
all
know.
of these things, all of these assets that were procedurally generated, that it was like, this is what you want when you make this thing, but they didn't need that level of detail given the scope that they were dealing with.
Yes, there was a lot more. Okay, so there was some areas where there's way too much detail, and some areas where there was no detail whatsoever.
Yeah,
there was a rumor at some point that this was supposed to dovetail in with Paradox's Sims clone, which was called Life by You, I want to say.
Okay.
But obviously Life by You has since been canceled.
Sure.
So that didn't happen.
Right. Okay. Well, because SimCity 4, I think, had like a crossover with The Sims 2 where you could like plop your Sims in a house that's in the town.
Yeah, I remember that.
Like kind of a, it wasn't really anything all that functional. It was just like a, haha, my Sims live there.
And it's just like a haha fun thing. Yeah, exactly.
Life by You sounds like a New Orleans simulator.
Life by You?
Well, that would be excellent.
Yeah.
I'd love
Life by You, yeah.
Life by You, yeah. Oh, now the water simulation there would be very difficult.
Yeah. You got to dodge the Crocs.
Oh, you got to put a second power system in for all the 25 hertz pumps.
Yeah, this game doesn't handle second power systems very well.
No.
Yeah,
Even
exactly.
the first
exactly. It's all 60 hertz.
Your fan boat routes would be insane, just constantly circling. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little confusing how like a lot of this stuff got through QA.
Yeah.
Because these are like very basic things. You do not want to have an error in your game that causes child pornography to occur.
Right. Yeah, that seems pretty... Seems like a
pretty bad one. That should not be a failure mode. That should not be anything that could conceivably occur.
This is the one thing we didn't want to happen.
I mean, it's like, because I remember too that there's some politics to it as well, right? You've got Colossal Order, which is a pretty small studio, and you've got Paradox, which is a massive fucking publisher. Huge.
Yes.
One of the biggest PC game publishers. And so in many cases, it's the team at Colossal Order having to sort of like make excuses for failures that largely happened because the publisher wanted it to be a certain way on a certain time scale while not giving them the resources they needed to do it right.
Now, one of the things which I think really contributed to the game looking very similar from 2021 to 2023 was Vladimir Putin, which is...
Heard of him. Heard of him.
Yes. So the game doesn't look very good. One of the reasons is you can sort of work backwards from the credits for this, although you have so on and so forth. They hired a game studio called Ulysses Graphics to do most of the buildings, the cars, the trains, the assets in general, right?
Okay.
They are located in beautiful Kiev, Ukraine.
It was pretty hard to work there for a while, is my understanding.
A lot of them,
nobody wants to work
strapping
anymore.
lads who work at a game art studio in Kiev. Probably found themselves having more important things to do, or being ordered by Zelensky to have more important things to do.
Right.
So they were at a lower capacity for a long time.
Jesus.
I personally find the game to be offensive to look at because all the buildings are so low detail. It is not a nice thing to look at.
But they sure are shiny.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Blinding.
The thing is, though, these are not unfixable problems.
No.
Like, the problem of the Ukraine war, like that, setting that aside for a moment, I'm just like talking about.
We're here to solve it. We're here to solve it right now.
Yeah, we're going to solve it right now.
That's right. No, but like
We're
shipping
going to do
a
it
game.
for the games. We're going to get the city builders. We're going to get Ice Pick Lodge back together. It's going to be great.
Pathologic too. We're getting the bachelor's route. We're doing it.
No, but like shipping a game, right? And getting assets together for a game.
Yeah.
When you are a publisher with the resources of Paradox, that's a solvable problem.
I think they could have shipped with a lot more assets, just gotten from somewhere else. And most of my complaints would be solved. I will say that. I'm sick of looking at a district that's all gas stations and they're all the same gas station, you know?
That's the gas station district.
That's the gas station district.
That is a
exactly.
historic part of our city. I'll have you know, sir, that this is our heritage.
You had some performance issues, obviously, from having these assets with too many damn polygons. Like, your average character model had like 80,000 polygons, which is a lot.
You spend most of the game not even really seeing them, you know, like you're zoomed out for so much of it.
I've done assets for the original City Skylines, and you know, you would use maybe 4,000 polygons for like a building.
Yeah.
And there's 80,000 in a person. Now this is a more modern game engine. It's a lot better with polygons than something from 2015, but it's still like, that's an insane number of polygons.
You have to know what your market is, right? There are computers that can play this, and there are a lot more computers that can't.
Yeah, exactly. Now here's problem number 2 is that, okay, you can have that many polygons if you have these things called levels of detail, right?
Yeah.
I zoom away from the guy, he gets fewer polygons.
It culls.
Yeah.
When the game shipped, it did not have levels of detail.
Oh, wow.
Goodness gracious.
At all, to the best of my knowledge.
You could see those teeth from space.
Yes, literally.
Well, and I remember that was something too, where it was like all the things like this game works okay up until you hit like 5,000 people. And then all of a sudden it just doesn't work anymore. And that makes sense if you were just developing more and more and more and more renderable detail that could not be toggled off in any way, shape, or form.
Well, that's less cities skylines and more towns footprints.
So they did solve.
What?
It's only 5,000. It's not going to be a skyline.
Yeah.
Hold on, I have to crack open my book of Jokister's work here. Hold on, what chapter will make me understand towns footsteps?
This is in joke dynamics. This is deep in there.
This is part of the DLC. These are jokes from Ulm. These are Ulmer jokes.
We've created jokes so funny only computers can understand them.
Hey, Brian, check this one out. You ready for this? Ulm's hat.
Ooh, shit.
Fuck. I really want my dream for this episode is we just get one comment that said Ulm mentioned.
One of the things they did to increase performance, admittedly this helped a lot, but it's very strange, is they were like, okay, eventually after a couple press releases that said the polygons weren't the issue, they added levels of detail message from this company called Instalod, which is essentially they had a machine do it for them. And this has resulted in just complete insanity. If you like look at the game, it's like, okay, I see a garbage truck and I zoom out from it. All of a sudden the running board on the garbage truck is attached to the tire.
Hell yeah.
And is just like, you know, constantly flapping back and forth.
Oh no.
The textures on like the flatbed truck, when you zoom out, however the machine did the LOD, it means that now the entire flatbed truck is the same texture as like the brake light.
Great.
So the whole thing lights up.
And so this was, I'm assuming, another thing where it was algorithmically calculated.
No, it's AI, Josh. It's AI.
It's AI now, even though this is probably an algorithm from like 2002.
Yeah.
It's all AI, baby.
Yeah. They just picked it off the corpse of SimCity 2013.
It pretty much.
It was on a punch card that somebody put into the machine and warlocked into
existence. We hired a warlock. He's going to help us I wonder how much of this is linked to like so much of the video game industry collapsing, especially in Scandinavia, because of Embracer Group and everything. Like, they can't outsource to companies that would usually handle it because the House of Sod has rendered them non-existent.
That's something that I wanted to mention too, is like from both Colossal Order and Paradox, but especially from the Paradox side, there was so much like, no, it's fine, actually. Like, don't worry about it. Like, we're fixing it. It's chill. Buy our game. And it was just so out of touch with what was actually happening and how people were receiving the game. I mean, if I recall correctly, they had to pull the game from Steam for a little while because people were so fucking pissed off.
They had to pull the first DLC that they did. The Beach Properties DLC broke a record for the most negatively reviewed piece of software on Steam.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's because they went wild. It went woke.
It was exactly. It was just a couple houses that didn't look like they belonged on a beach. By the way, there's no beaches in the game.
There were beaches in the first game. Oh no.
Yeah,
oh dear.
Oh,
there was
my
some
God.
remarkably bad community management in like the first, I would say 6 months or so the game was out, which was basically like, we can't believe there's this much toxicity in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, well, there's toxicity in the community because this game is unacceptable as delivered. I mean, this is...
Right.
This is not
Pre-ordered
good.
this, they spent a lot of money, and then they got something that just wasn't good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very like the beatings will continue until morale improves kind of vibes.
And it doesn't have mod support currently, right? Like, it's not...
So you can do code mods, so you can do all kinds of incredible things with like roads and stuff right now. So if you're mad at the menu for having too many roads, there's now a mod you can download right now that just lets you make a custom road to your own specifications. It's fantastic. It's brilliant.
I'm not mad at the menu because there's too many mods. I'm mad at the menu because it's woke.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Is there a mod to make it go back to sleep?
Can you make it unwoke?
The menu is censored. It's feminine. It's gay.
What else? The community management was bad with the, complaining that the community for being toxic for a while. And eventually they had to do a full economy rewrite, I believe.
That's bad when that's the main thing in the game.
Yeah, but this is true. This is true. I mean, for when I was playing it, like most of the time I was playing it, garbage collection just didn't work at all.
Yeah, well, I heard that like,
oh no,
because landfills, instead of just being one square you plop down, it's resizable. You can make a huge dump.
It's a weird area thing. Yeah,
but
I hate it. It's miserable.
In a way that I think was trying to help gamers out, it automatically is set to import trash if you're not meeting trash demand, which just means your dump fills up all the way really fast and you have no idea why until you go into the little like menu and check it off.
Oh no.
Because it's just imported the trash from Ogdenville.
I will say this, coming to the launch of this game, I was like, okay, as long as they let the modders go at it with impunity, it's going to be fine.
Right.
Yeah.
It took them probably 6 months to get code mods in.
I see.
It took them about the same amount of time to get maps in, right? You still cannot put your own building in.
Really?
Wow.
You cannot put your, which is the thing I like to do. As like someone who uses this game to tell a story.
Exactly.
Yeah,
well, this goes all the way back to what we were talking about at the beginning, SimCity 2000 Urban Renewal Kit, where you could make your own sprites of buildings and put them in your game.
Yes, you cannot, as of now, put your own buildings in, and all the buildings in the game are gray bricks.
And I can imagine, all I can think of right now is all the people working at Colossal Order who probably for months were like, this is bad, guys.
Yeah.
We're on just the wrong. They're yelling in Finnish, like we're on the wrong fucking track. Like we need to reprioritize. We need to refocus. We need to see what worked in the first game. Like, to think about, they had such goodwill from the first game, even though they had excessive DLC, because every time they released DLC, the quality of life improvements that came with it ended up in the base game as a free patch. Sometimes you got a little bit of extra radio. Sometimes you got a little bit of extra road control or better pathfinding or something like that.
Eventually, they're like, "Fuck it, give everyone trams."
Right, exactly. Yeah. I was watching it so much from afar because I don't have a computer that could play this thing. I could see from the very first image of the thing, I was like, nope, that's going to set my house on fire.
Right.
But then the game came out and the overwhelming EA SimCity-esque negativity of it all, I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that it could have been lost that badly and that quickly.
Yeah, it was bad. I mean, right after the release, one of the things is for us legacy people who were like in the inner circle at Colossal Order, they kicked us all out of that particular group pretty quickly.
Oh no.
Yeah. City Skylines 1 still has more players than City Skylines 2.
It's now been almost a year since Skylines 2 was supposed to come out on console, and they still haven't released it yet because they've had to put all their focus on fixing the PC version.
Well, and you're going to have to optimize a lot more for consoles because they're not going to be as powerful as the high-end computers you designed this game for.
I mean, I have a extremely high-end PC that Liam and I built in an emergency last Christmas. Or around then, because my old PC just collapsed, and it was it still struggled with City Skylines 2 before they did the emergency optimizations.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Man, this is a fucking bummer.
But I guess there's one thing that I did want to raise, which is that when it comes to sequels that are released in an unfinished or broken state, with enough time, they can sometimes eventually become good games. And we've seen this. We saw it with No Man's Sky. We saw it with Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm just kind of curious to hear, does this seem like a game where eventually it can get good enough that it will salvage Colossal Order's reputation? Or does it feel like something where trust has been fundamentally broken in a way that cannot truly be repaired?
This game is the only general purpose city simulator out there right now.
Yeah.
I believe that once you're able to put your own custom assets in the game, it will be, for all intents and purposes, fixed, at least for those of us who are like interested in creating content or, anything like that. I'm not sure how it will go with everyone else.
Yeah.
The thing is, there's no replacement. Colossal Order has a monopoly right now. So you have either this or City Skylines 1. There is no alternative.
You could go really far back and play SimCity 4, but then
some people are doing that.
Yeah.
I've done that. I get lost partway through it, but it's cool.
It's like then you have to go back into ancient forums and you have to download the network add-on mod.
Yeah.
And it's you could do great things with that game, but you have to really think about it, because that if you cross the tram track that's modded in with the other road that's modded in, it will instantly crash the game unrecoverably. All it takes is a wrong move of the mouse.
But that's just the beauty of PC gaming, isn't it? At the end of the day, I love that shit. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. This was really a lot of fun. If folks want to hear more from you, if they want to check your shit out, what should they do? Where should they go?
Well, I am on the podcast Well, There's Your Problem. It is a podcast about engineering disasters with slides. It's on YouTube. It's on anywhere fine podcasts are sold. If they finally fix this damn game, you might be able to find me on Paradox's proprietary mod platform, assuming they don't kick me off of it because of this podcast, which is something they will be able to do because they're not. It's a whole. They're not doing Steam integration anymore,
right?
But,
and I AJ said it as well. I would recommend that anybody go check out your YouTube channel with the Franklin series, the Power Politics and Planning series.
Yes.
Really great stuff there. And actually, I should say, Well, There's Your Problem. AJ and I went on it.
This is true. It was a good episode.
We had a good time. It was a bonus episode. Yeah. We talked about the American theater. And if you have enjoyed this episode and would like more of our shit, definitely check out our Patreon, patreon.com/worstofall. $5 a month gets you access to our premium episodes. We do these every other week. We're usually talking about stuff that's a little bit more obscure or strange or just like our special interest. $10 a month on that also gets you access to Lads Cast, where it's a monthly thing. We just shoot the shit about what's on our mind. But regardless of whether you choose to support us on Patreon or just listen to our show, we appreciate you greatly. Thanks for spending some time with us today.
So we talked a lot today about city skylines and how you're able to build a town in your image, whether that is laying it out grid by grid or just sort of haphazardly slapping down roads and hoping for the best. And
you used to be able to do it in your image, at least.
Yeah. And it is a shame that we've sort of lost that along the way. But, the thing that inspires me most is that you can take this toolbox and you can create something like, Roz, you have proven to be great art. So pick up City Skylines, build your city, and make your art. I'm the worst of all possible AJs.
I'm the worst of all possible Brians.
And I'm the worst of all possible Joshes. See you next week.
I'm the worst of all possible Rozes.
Hey, we did it! We got you there. Let's
we
go.
ruined him. Woo! Thank you, Big Daddy's Liquor Barn. Yeah.